I'm going to hopefully, although the change will be how we doing?
Folks, if anybody else wants to speak at the public hearing or public comment, if you could just please sign up, that'd be awesome. Everybody's good? And there's agendas if anybody needs. Which one are you looking at? I want to make sure I'm not on the right. Yep.
That's here.
Yep.
This one sheet.
I now call this August 4th, 2026 meeting to order. How are you all? All right. First, we'll start off with our invocation by Commissioner Way.
Pray with me if you will, like.
Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening and ask for your thanks. We also ask for your many blessings that you've provided to us. Lord, thank you for this rain that we've received over the past several days. Lord, we ask you to be with those in the community that need your uplifting hand. We are very appreciative for the engagement of our community on topics that are especially important to all of us. Lord, we ask you to be with us tonight, guide us as we make decisions that affect not only us, but those of our neighbors. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance, Commissioner Kaczynski.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gleason.
Here.
Commissioner Moss.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilkins.
Present.
Commissioner Kaczynski.
Here.
Commissioner Ray.
Here.
Mayor Downing.
Here.
Thank you.
Approval of agenda.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, please.
Commissioner Moss.
Yes, sir. I think it's already been said, but I did want to ask if you would just kind of announce once again that there are two sign-up sheets tonight, one for our regular public comment and another for the data center public comment. So if folks need to make an adjustment, that might be a good thing.
Okay. Where'd that come from? That's gonna... Did we miss anybody on the sign-up sheets? All right, so we're good on that. Is there a motion to
approve the agenda.
second? Motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, moving right along. The reappointment of Miss Priscilla Chavis Lockley.
Make a motion, we.
Oh, consent agenda, I'm sorry.
Consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. It's seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, reappointment of Priscilla Chavis Lockley.
No, that's on the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor. Going down now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's why we're here, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Request to address the board.
Nope.
7A. Oh, yeah. Introduction, I'll get it together. I'm sorry, y'all. Introductions, recognition, and presentation. Can I have Miss Jessica Laws come to the front, please? And Chief Willis.
Repeat after me. I, Jessica H. Laws, swear or affirm that I support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as lieutenant. I, Jessica Laws, do solemnly and sincerely swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are of and may be established by for the government thereof, and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of the state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God. I, Jessica Laws, do solemnly swear that I will be alert and vigilant to enforce the criminal laws of this state. I will not be influenced in any matter or account of personal bias or prejudice. That I will faithfully and impartially execute the duties of my office and the law enforcement officer according to the best of my skill, ability, and judgment. So help me God.
Congratulations, Lieutenant.
Anything to say yet?
Yes, sir.
solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as police officer. So help me God. I, James Lewis III, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina, and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God. I, James Lewis III, do solemnly swear that I will be alert and vigilant to enforce the criminal laws of this state, that I will not be influenced in any matter or account of personal bias or prejudice, that I will faithfully and impartially execute the duties of my office as a law enforcement officer according to the best of my skills, abilities, and judgment, so help me God.
Tore that all to pieces. Yes, sir. All right, stay dispersed. All right, we'll move down to public comment. Can we please keep our comments to 3 minutes? When you come up, state your name and your address. Mr. Ryan Brown.
Thank you. Ryan Brown, 2009 Francis Court, over in Golden Pond. You all know I'm here against the flock cameras. 6 months ago, I was against the flock cameras and everything that came with them, basically by myself. And now there's people here that are against the flock cameras and against the data centers and all that comes with it. So we can do the right thing. Macon County just got rid of theirs last 2 weeks. And then the news also came out, Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer, who doesn't even have access to flock cameras himself, was searching through flock cameras to help his buddy who was trying to help sell some drugs. So they don't even have flock cameras. They're searching nationwide, trying to find undercover police officers and everything else. They're using our cameras to search for, undercover cops for their drug buddies, right? This is just how silly the situation is. We have so many cameras, and too many people have access to them, and then everyone can search through and spy on citizens of Creedmoor when we're just trying to drive around. Granville County Sheriff recently held a town hall meeting, basically, a couple weeks back, where most of the people in Granville County who showed up were against the cameras. There's probably 80% against. He did the right thing. He had a public hearing beforehand. My hope and my desire and my read is that he's not going to implement the cameras in the county. And that's the right thing to do. The cameras in Creedmoor, maybe I just missed the notice, but they just seem to pop up overnight without a whole lot of public comment, and every public comment has been against it. Maybe that's just on me for not being judicious the last couple of years, but anyways, we can just get rid of them. It's that simple. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ryan. We need to open up public hearing. We need to open up the first one. Okay. All right. All right. Text Amendment 2026 ZTA 02 Data Centers, Mr. Dallas Barker. Baker.
I'll answer the Barker.
People here.
All right, there we go. Make sure everything is on here. Hello, my name is Dallas Baker. I am the city planner for Creedmoor. And tonight I'm here to talk to you about ZTA 2026-02 data centers. And before I do that, I just want to say thank you to the board for your encouragement and interest in this matter. I want to thank the planning board. It's been months working on this ordinance. Also want to give a thanks to the School of Government, who actually helped us quite a bit with this, to the city attorney and to our city staff, particularly Mr. Doug Middleton, who is our planning technician, and to Mr. Mike Frangos, who was our community development director. And he's not here tonight. He had a very well-deserved 2-week vacation in Europe. Also want to thank all of the citizens who came out tonight who have interest in this issue. Public engagement is very important to our democracy and to our processes, and so we're glad to have you here tonight. Why do we need a data center ordinance? The reason is we're currently exposed. We do not right now have good regulations in place for data centers in our ordinance. And should we get an application, we are not prepared to properly regulate them. So we need a good ordinance to protect us. And I'm hopeful by the end of tonight that you will see that we have provided you just that. Let's see if this is going to work for me now. Hang on.
There you go.
All right. Okay, I got it now. All right, so you've seen this before. This is our text amendment process. We did this last fall. We did it this spring. We ended up carving the data centers out of our spring text amendments to carry into the summer because we need a little bit more time to let it cook. But you've seen this before, and we're at the end of the process right here in front of y'all. Timeline. Data centers are of the moment. They are a topic of interest. They're all a buzz in the news, but they are not new to us. We have been working on this issue since November of 2025. We had our first public meeting in February of 2026, and this is the 7th public meeting that we have had on data centers in the city. This is our second time before the Board of Commissioners. We had an informational meeting with you earlier this spring, and we had 5 planning board meetings. So we have brought this to the public repeatedly. Also, just to point out, we have done all the procedural requirements for a text amendment, including the planning board statement of consistency and the 2 public notices being published in a paper of record, which is the Later News. White papers. You read all these. Legislation and ordinance. You read those too. News articles. Yep. Other media. We watched and listened. Meetings and consultations. Why do I run you through all that right now? Everything from the National League of Cities to the Journal of Noise and Health, outside state legislation and ordinance, places like Fredericksburg, Maryland, and Mesa, Arizona, looking at places like Pitt County and the City of Sanford ordinances, looking at news, places like Vox, New York Times, Smithsonian Magazine, News and Observer, WRAL, Ledger News. Looking at TED Talk, listening to Marketplace with Charlie Rizal, watching a fantastic PBS documentary, and talking with city staff, city attorney, planning board, board of commissioners, School of Government on multiple occasions, and of course our own community development staff, endless conversations for the last 9-10 months. Why did I show all that to you? First, to let you know how smart I am. But mostly, to let you know that we're doing due diligence. That this is not a rabbit we pulled out of a hat that came out of nowhere. That we have spent the time and the effort to do the research, to have the conversations, to bring you a good ordinance. That doesn't mean it'll be perfect, which we do want to let you know where it's coming from. Also to give you transparency so that anybody who's interested in where this came from, this is where it came from. You can go and look up and read the same sources that we did. All right, let's talk about preemption. So, the zoning authority for our local government is quite broad. However, it does have limits. And chief among those are preemptions by the federal and state government. Now, there are 2 bills that are currently working their way through their respective bodies. One is the U.S. Congress. There's House Resolution 9340. And as of July 21st, it was referred to the Energy and Commerce Subcommittee in the House. It's called the Ratepayer Protection Act. And it's about keeping down our electricity prices from data centers. There is a Ratepayer Protection Act, actually, in our state as well, Senate Bill 730. That one has originated in the Senate, passed the House, and is now back in the Senate for concurrence, where it was referred there on June 8th, 2026. Apologies. And I bring this up to let you know a couple things. One, whatever we do tonight, if and when those bills or something like them passes, we're going to have to revisit this and revise it. We're just going to have to. If we try to wait until they get it done, remember I said earlier, we don't currently have a good regulation, we leave ourselves open. So know already that whatever we do tonight, we are going to have to revisit this at some point in the future, okay? Just when the state or the feds act, we're going to have to revisit it. But despite that, staff is suggesting that we go ahead and move forward so that we have some type of regulation in place. Data centers are an emerging issue. This is not news to anybody in this room. And they are spreading really rapidly. So I want to pause for a second and make a couple things clear. First of all, we do not have an application for a data center in the city. No one has applied. I am the city planner. I would be the first or the second person in the entire city to see or know if we have a data center application. It would come on my desk, I would look at it, and I would read it. I have not. Right hand to God, okay? So we do not have an application. The reason we're bringing this is because your staff wants to be proactive. And we think there's good reason to be proactive. There is data center activity all around us. The state of Virginia has the most data centers of any place in the world, period. Any place in the world. Texas is catching up, they're not there yet. So Virginia has the most of any place in the world. There are data centers in Wake County and Durham County, and Person and Vance County also have data center projects that are moving forward. We're in a bubble. It is conceivable that we're eventually going to have an applicant. If not to our city, then to one of our neighbors. We want to be prepared for that. So we're not alone. There are already 15 to 30, depending on how you measure it, operating data centers in North Carolina, and there are 40 to 60 planned, depending upon how you measure that as well. And there is no standard approach. You know, places like Person and Vance, they're like, let's go, let's do it. Places like Butner and Durham, there's been a pause, there's been a moratorium. And then places like Granville County, just last night, they're passing regulations. So there is no standard approach, and everyone is kind of dealing with this and learning as we go. We are in good company when it comes to this issue. So what is a data center? Again, I'm pretty sure everybody already knows this, but data centers are the backbone of the digital infrastructure of our modern day world. They've been around since around the 1980s, and usually they were things like, you know, I'm going to go and have my pets.com website. And, you know, when I click on to buy my product and to pick it and to have it shipped, like there's technology that's making that happen. Cell phone towers, like the monopole we got out there. They have boxes of exchanges and switches and hubs that could be classified as a data center. So it's been around for a long time. And there are a lot of issues that are kind of tied into data centers, all right? Everything from streaming and online shopping to things like AI, the Internet of Things, drones, flock cameras. These are all really big, important issues. They deserve to be debated and discussed, but that's not what I'm here to you about tonight. I'm here to you tonight about data centers as a land use. I'm an urban planner. That's my job. So we're going to be talking about tonight not what data centers do, but what they are and where they're built and how they're built. So that is our focus tonight. The other thing is you need to know that data centers are big. 1.5 trillion will be spent to build data centers between now and the end of 2027. And that's only the 7 biggest companies, the Magnificent 7, have already pledged 1.5 trillion. They've already spent 500 billion this year alone. That is more than the United States government has for our military budget in a time of war. So very, very large. And they're fast. 1 to 3 years to develop, 18 months on average. So big and fast. And they do something that is difficult for us. They have tension that is created between the federal, the state, and the local. At the federal level, at the national level, we're competing with places like China, Russia, Europe, to be at the forefront of this technology. Because being at the forefront of that technology is going to mean things militarily, economically, culturally, at a nation-state level. At the state level, states are fighting amongst themselves, competing to see who can have the next Silicon Valley, who's going to have those jobs of the future, who's going to have the infrastructure of the future. That's what they're competing about. Who's going to have that tax base? And then locally, we're the ones who bear the costs and the burdens. So benefits of data centers, a strong military, a vibrant state economy, those are shared widely. But the costs are concentrated locally. So there's a tension there. So we often have the feds and the state doing things to push data centers faster, to make it go faster, to help push this industry forward. Whereas localities are like slow. And as everybody knows, we get preempted by federal and state. So that is starting to change. We're starting to see legislation. The state of North Carolina just got rid of our tax exemptions for data centers. For the last couple of years, electricity use and buying things like servers and whatnot in the state of North Carolina for a data center was tax-free. That has been revoked. Now they pay taxes on those things. So things are changing. Those ratepayer bills I showed you earlier are evidence of that, but there is still that tension there. And the last thing I want to say is this is a historic shift. This is similar to the gold rush with the railroads, right? And there's a lot of speculation. These companies are competing to see who's going to be the leader for the next couple of decades or century. This is like GE, right? This is like AT&T, the kind of technology that you can build your company's future on for a century or more. So there's a lot going on here, but we don't know how it's going to turn out. Not all of those companies are going to succeed, and we don't know where the future leads. So there's a lot going on here. There's a lot at stake. Let's talk about the scale. The data centers come in different flavors. We have micro, sometimes called edge data centers, which are small. They can be the size of, like, say, a Subway restaurant, all the way down to a shipping container. Again, I mentioned the monopole out here has, a little box that could be considered a data center. Traditional or enterprise data centers are kind of like storefronts, sometimes the size of like a large grocery store. And the micro and the traditional are often found in urban areas. Pew Research did a study where they looked at the different sizes of data centers. And those two are often found in urban areas. Micro centers are placed next to places like universities, military bases, things like that, where you need a little boost because there's a lot of people nearby. Whereas traditional enterprise are kind of mixed into the community. You'll find them in either cities or suburbs. The hyperscale or regional data centers are relatively new, like the last decade or so, and they're huge. And the place, you can't put those inside a city. So as Pew Research pointed out, more and more, those are going to rural areas, the rural fringe. And usually they need to be located near infrastructure. They need gas lines, water lines, electricity. They need roads. They go next to small towns or right on the edge of small towns, which is one of the reasons we're concerned about it. And then there are different kind of facilities. Most data centers are usually dedicated to one company. Co-located facilities are basically where a company will build a center and then just rent space. So if people are throwing that term around, just so you know what it means. And I do just want to say, part of the scale factor here that I wanted to talk about was, I've got on the hyperscale kind of like some size comparisons. So Person County, their data center is a Microsoft center. It's going to be 1,350 acres. Okay? 1,350 acres is going to be in Person County. All right? 10 to 200 megawatts per day is pretty much hyperscale. Some of them are now going up to gigascale, which is 1,000 megawatts per day. Okay? Just so you know, 1 megawatt is approximately 600 to 1,000 homes. 100 megawatts is the size of the city of Charlotte. That uses the energy of a 1 million-person city. Those state and federal regulations I showed you earlier, the Ratepayer Protection Act, they only cover and only protect for 100 megawatt and larger facilities. So unless it's the size of the city of Charlotte in its energy use, even if those good bills pass, we would still not be protected for anything under that, which is another reason we need regulation. So, moving forward. Oh, and then water, of course. 500,000 gallons per day, that's our water tower. That's 24 hours worth of water for our city that they would use per day at the largest size. All right, so data centers, the good. There are good things about data centers. They provide jobs. Construction jobs tend to be plentiful and short-lived. Again, 18 months. Operating jobs tend to be few, like the 10s or the 1s, right? 3 people, 6 people, 15, maybe 30 at most. They tend to be well-paying, but you don't get a lot. What are you doing? I'm going to flip back now. Data center didn't like me. All right, tax revenue. This is actually oftentimes where localities see the most benefit. Data centers don't use a lot of services when they're up and running, and often because the property and the assets on the property are quite valuable, then, the locality gets a lot of money in tax revenue. It's often very attractive to a lot of places. And you do get infrastructure upgrades in and around the data center. If they don't have power lines or water or, something like that that gets close enough to their facility, they'll build it for you. Need a road? They'll build it. They're happy to do it. So those are pros you get. And there are places that encourage data centers. Loudoun County, Virginia, right? Data center capital of the world. Western North Carolina data corridor, right? Out there, Catawba, Forest City, those folks. And then the entire state of Texas, which is growing very rapidly and will very soon have the most number of data centers of any place in the world. And how do they do that? They encourage them through incentives and light regulation. But that has a cost. Those incentives will likely be banned in the future. For example, Senate Bill 730 I mentioned bans incentives for cities for data centers. You're in competition with others, and oftentimes that ends up with a race to the bottom. And current and future citizens are oftentimes not well protected. Now, I will say one other thing for good. Proponents of data centers often point out, and it is true, that this is a nascent technology, and that over time, it will improve. It will get more efficient, more sustainable, all of that. It will. But we don't know how long that will take. Maybe it takes years, maybe it takes decades. So, something to consider. Data centers, the bad. So, consumption, huge amounts of energy and water. Pollution, air, water, noise, vibration, PFAS, you can go on and on and on. Crowds out other uses, particularly at the large scales, those hyperscale centers, which is what we tend to get in rural areas. It competes with other uses, housing, businesses, arable farmland, open space. If you're going to spend 1,350 acres, you can't build something else there, right? If, we're working on Joe P's station right now, right? If we had a data center come on the edge of the city and take away a sizable chunk of that future allocation, that's houses we could not build, right? So there are trade-offs to having something of that size in your proximity. And there are plenty of places that discourage data centers. Fayetteville, Apex, Durham, Morrisville, the entire state of New York all have moratoria, right? And we did do research on moratoria and prohibitions. But there's issues with those approaches too. Moratoria are temporary, and they have requirements in and of themselves. You can't just say, I want a moratoria. You got to go through a process to get it. And moratoria, the whole point of a moratoria is to give you time to study and write an ordinance, much like the one I'm presenting tonight. Prohibitions are everyone we've talked to, everything we've read. There is nothing in state law that prevents us from prohibiting a data center. However, no one who's ever prohibited something in North Carolina has ever withstood legal challenge. Every single city that's tried it has failed. There's no law saying you can't do it, but the courts have struck it down every single time. So a prohibition is unlikely to work, very unlikely to work. and you would end up back here unprotected and needing to do the process all over again. So how are we going to approach this? So we've given this a lot of thought. Pardon me. Getting a bit parched. We've given this a lot of thought, and we believe strong regulations are the best and most balanced approach. Because we want something that is going to resist legal challenge. We want a process that's going to resist outside influence. We want something that's going to protect the public and that's going to maximize any benefits should we get a data center, right? So we're trying to find that balanced through line. And we're going to do this a couple of ways. We're going to try to create buffers, limit consumption and pollution. We're going to try to leverage the beneficial state and federal regulations and bodies that are out there to our advantage. And we're going to try to think long term. And another thing I will mention, part of the benefit of this approach is that once we have kind of our regulatory house in order, we are then able to communicate better with our neighbors. Because the other part of this is that we are not an isle to ourselves, as John Donne would say, right? We are all a piece of the continent, part of the Maine. So the idea is that we should be in conversation with our neighbors, Butner, Stem, Granville County, others, to make sure that, you know, as a region, we're approaching this in an intelligent way. Doesn't mean we'll all necessarily have the same standards or the same approach, but that we all are basically trying to go in the same direction. So, how are we going to approach this? There are three basic processes, and it's actually very important to understand these processes because none of them are a perfect tool. Every single one of them has a trade-off. They're trade-offs. They are not perfect. They all have negatives and downsides. The special use permit process freezes out the public. It is experts giving testimony in a court-like setting. You can't even talk to your spouse about it, right? So you, as a body, would not be able to legislate as you normally do. It would be a very formal process that would not allow public engagement. We think that is the worst possible approach we could take, and as a staff, we decided that we were going to put that to the side. That left the two other possibilities, conditional zoning district or permitted with additional standards. Conditional zoning district is what they did last night in Granville County, for those of you who are aware of that. And it has things that speak for it. Conditional zoning district gives you the most flexibility. You can say yes, you can say no, you can change the standards, and it is the one that has the most public engagement and input. It has all that for it. However, there's something other than public engagement we looked at, and that was outside influence. And so for conditional zoning district, the applicant has to agree to any of your standards. You have to negotiate those standards, and they have to say yes. The standards are generally not in place before they get there because conditional zoning districts, their standards they start with are the standards for the district in general. So you would have to raise the standards for the entire district, right? You'd have to have every single warehouse have data center standards in our industrial district, okay, which we'll get into, in order for you to have really high standards as a CZ. You can't, so it's either everybody has these high data standards for every little, like, you know, somebody wants to have a light industry where they're going to do, like, you know, manufacturing, I don't know, cast iron pans, right? Cookies, whatever. Maybe at data center standards, right? What we felt was a better approach was permitted with additional standards because the standards are upfront. We've made them ahead of time. They're consistent because the other thing with conditional zoning district is every single applicant gets to negotiate their own set of standards. So applicant A, you know, may get really tough standards. Then there's election. Time passes. People forget. Applicant B comes, standards are low, right? Applicant C comes, and the standards change again. So we want consistent standards. Permitted with additional standards does give us a chance for public engagement. As I said, this is our 7th public meeting. We're having a public hearing tonight. There is an opportunity for engagement. Right now, we have no applicant. There's no one else influencing us except us as a city and citizens. There's no applicant in the room with us. So we're crafting the process without their influence and without that pressure. It's a low pressure policy environment versus having to try to make that policy every time there's an applicant and they're lobbying you. And I say that, we oftentimes always think that we're above being persuaded or coerced. I will tell you, my 8-year-old niece, even though I'm not supposed to give her sweets, it takes her less than 5 minutes to get me to get to the cookie jar and give it to her, okay? And these are the wealthiest, most powerful companies that have ever existed on the planet. For decades, ExxonMobil was the largest company in America for decades. GE tried and could never catch them. The smallest of the Magnificent Seven, I think it's Meta. I think it's the smallest one. It's 8 times larger than ExxonMobil by itself. The amount of money and resources they have is nigh unlimited. So the permitted with additional standards process basically says we can be pressured, we don't want to be pressured, so we're going to write standards that are really high, and we're going to kind of do like, the movie just came out, we're going to do like Odysseus versus the Sirens, and we're going to lash ourselves to the mast. So no matter how much they sing at us, it's written in law, and it's not going to be negotiated. The standards stay high. However, this process does have a flaw. We give up flexibility. You will not get that up or down. You will not be able to negotiate the standards. And if a data center comes here and they apply and our standards are high and they meet them, they will be permitted. They will be permitted. So that is something you need to know. I do not want to lead you down a path and you feel tricked. If we go with this process, if they meet the standards, then they get accepted. That's what happens. Again, those are our choices. I wish there was a perfect choice where we could have high standards and we get to say yes or no. That would be great. There isn't one. This is the best we got. And we are suggesting to staff that we do go with permitted with additional standards. And it's no longer working again. We'll try it again. Oh, it's back. All right. So, what is in this text amendment? All right. ZTA 2026-02 data centers. So what do we have in here? We have a fee schedule, definitions, a table of general uses getting updated, and then the actual additional standards, which are the Article 10 chapters and segments you see there. So I will say really quickly about our fee table. So we are going to have as part of part of the ordinance package. It's not in the ZTA itself. It's part of the ordinance language. Your now therefore section of the ordinance, where we have to have fees for data center applications. So currently our highest fee that we have as a city for a planning application is for a monopole. So if you do a wireless communications facility, it's $2,000 to apply. What we're proposing to staff is for a micro center, it's going to be $1,000. For traditional data center, it'd be a $5,000 application. For hyperscale, it's a $10,000 application. And part of the reason to justify that is there are going to be a tremendous amount of studies that have to be done as part of that application process. And there's going to be ongoing enforcement where we have to review reports and studies on an ongoing basis because we have requirements for them to submit to us continually. The other thing is, like the monopole, we are going to require as part of that fee schedule that 100% of any city-incurred consultant costs are going to be paid by the applicant. So if we need an expert in, say, acoustics, right, then the applicant pays for a consultant. We go out, we find the consultant, we hire them, they do the study, they give us the bill, we hand it to the applicant, and they pay it. So that's going to be part of the fee schedule. All right. So let's dig into definitions. So for definitions, we're using the American Planning Association definition. So if you look at the actual text of the ordinance where it has the definitions, we break them out into 3 pieces. We have 3 different defined versions of the data center. So there's the hyperscale, the traditional, and the micro that we showed you on the scale earlier. And so we have standards for each of these. The hyperscale have the highest, most comprehensive standards. Traditional are fairly similar to the hyperscale. There are one or two things that are different, and the micro are the ones that we're the most flexible with. And part of the reason we have it like this, that we've broken it into those three different types, are one, just practically speaking, there are different levels of impact. And also, to protect us legally, we do not want to get a finding of arbitrary and capricious from the North Carolina court system. And part of the way we protect ourselves versus that is by being reasonable, right? We cannot set bars so high that no one could ever possibly qualify, because that's basically just a ban, and that'll get struck down. We can set high standards. We cannot set impossible standards. If we set them impossible, we will be invalidated, and it would be the same thing as if we had no regulation at all. So we have to hit that balance. We have to hit that place where we have a high standard, but it's not so high that it gets invalidated. So there are a lot of things that we've studied that are not included, that got excluded from this ordinance. And some of them were just not things that were not feasible for us. Some of them were superfluous. We covered them in other ways. A lot of it was preemption. So, for example, we cared a lot about air quality. We did a lot of research on air quality. We did a lot of research on PFAS, and we're preempted by the state. The state law preempts air quality. You have to have an air quality management district that has to be passed. I didn't even know about it, but it's like Article 143 in the general statutes. Okay, PFAS. Those regulations are currently being produced by the Department of Environmental Quality. They're going through a process. They started in, I believe it was in 2022, and they've been going through that process since to develop regulations for PFAS, which will be enforced through the local water utility. So Saguasa will eventually be responsible for managing PFAS in the water. So we can't do it because the state is already doing it, and they say, that's ours, you can't have it. So we did look at these things, just so you know, but these were the ones that we felt that we could not include. We just were not at the point where we could do that. Here's what was included. We have 22 standards that are included in this ordinance. We're attempting to be comprehensive, but we know we don't know all of it. There are going to be parts of these that we put into place that will be changed by federal state law when those change, that might get changed by future court cases. There are going to be things that we did not anticipate or think about that we will have to add in time. There are going to be things that we were worried about that turn out not to be a big deal. But for right now, with what we know at this moment, these are the standards that we think we need. And if you look at it, you can see pretty quickly, so all of the standards apply to the hyperscale. The traditional has all the standards of the hyperscale. It does not have the separation or the heat island effect standards. And then the micro is by far the most flexible. So for the smaller units, we're not putting them through the same rigor. So let's go ahead and dive into the standards. I'm going to just put it here. Stop reaching. So the first is our submittal requirements. And we have a lot of them. We require them to submit a lot of reports and studies to us. We require them to be sealed and signed by a surveyor, a landscape architect, an architect, or an engineer, right? Somebody who can put their seal on it and say, my reputation is behind this. We also have an important clause where any other studies, certifications, reports that we need on any topic that we feel has not been addressed, that we need to address, we can request. We've left ourselves a caveat that we can ask for whatever we need if we find out there's something we didn't get that we think we need. And I will say the large site plan process is something where that includes, for example, our stormwater rules. It includes our Falls Lake rules is included in that. It is the most rigorous process that we currently have. So every large development, like Brames and Cedar Creek and those big subdivisions that we have, that's the process they go through, right? So if you're just going to build something big, just if it was buildings, right, you would go through a large site plan process. Everything after that is extra. That's all stuff we added after our largest, most thorough process. Large site plans do come before you, okay? You will see them. But large site plans, when it comes before you, it won't be, hey, we can do whatever we want. It'll be, oh, did they check all the boxes? And if they check all the boxes, you will be required to pass it. And that's where I was talking about earlier. We're going to set a high bar, but if they do meet that high bar, it will be incumbent upon you to pass it. The one thing that you will have discretion on is water allocation. We have a water allocation policy for the city. And so if a data center comes and they ask for, 50,000 or 100,000 or 200,000 gallons worth of water, you could in your discretion say that is too much water for our city to give up. And that would be your lever to say, no, we will not give you the water. And therefore they would not be able to build. So there is a lever for you, but there are many fewer levers in this process than, say, the conditional zoning process. I just want you to be aware of that. I don't want anybody to feel that we are trying to sneak something past you. We're not. We're being as transparent as we can be. Separation is our second requirement. So hyperscale data centers must be located half a mile from protected uses. So the state of North Carolina has what are called regulated and protected uses. Regulated uses are things that have impacts. Protected uses are things that we want to keep from being impacted. And traditionally they include things like homes, schools, and churches. We put all three into this group. And they have to be at least half a mile from the property line of the data center to the structure. And we did it that way instead of property line to property line. Because again, if we had the bar too high, it'll invalidate it. There has to be some place in the city that they could find a place that they could site a data center. Practically, the effect would be to restrict it to the northwest area of the city. If you remember back here, I said, where was it? Right here. No, hang on, sorry. Where was it? Definitions. Yeah, the zoning is industrial. So it's industrial zoning for the hyperscale and traditional. We only have two industrial areas in the city. One is right across the street from the food line, right down the road from the middle and the high school. So you could not possibly put a data center half a mile from those things. So it could not go there at all with this ordinance. The only place it would be able to go is in that northwest quadrant of the city, or they would have to annex into the city, in which case you would be able to say, yes, you may annex, or no, you may not. That is another area of discretion you would have. So, also, if they tried to rezone a parcel, say from an agricultural parcel and they wanted to flip it to industrial, you would have the discretion to say, yes, we want to rezone it, or no, we don't. So that's another area where you would have discretion. There are discretion points for you in this process. They're just not as plentiful. Setbacks. So setbacks are how far the structure can be from the property line. For hyperscale, we're looking at 600 feet, traditional 200 feet, and for micro, 50 feet. Access. Knox box is required for all sizes of data centers. That's just so our emergency services have access to the property. Building design. The highway lot and building standards, as per our CDO Article 9.8, are our most comprehensive and detailed building design standards that we currently have in code. And those are the ones that we're saying they have to use. Utilities have to all be underground. Signage. This is about transparency. This is about knowing who owns the data center and how to get a hold of them. Nobody gets to hide. You've got to give us your name. You've got to give us your owner's name and their contact. Not just like ABC company, but like, oh, you're really like Meta. You're really Google. You're really, Amazon. We're going to know who you are. Landscaping. At the hyperscale, we're looking for a double type A landscape buffer. Type A is the largest landscape buffer we have. It is 35 feet of trees and shrubs, right? We're asking for twice that number. So we're asking for 70 feet of landscaping around the hyperscale centers. We're also asking for internal landscaping to disrupt heat island effects, like tree corridors, and things of that nature, because we don't want that heat island effect from, say, like a big patch of asphalt or concrete, right? And then for the traditional, we're asking for that 35-foot landscape buffer on all sides of those. Parking, we don't want them to have a lot of parking. We don't want a lot of parking in data centers, and they're probably not going to need it because they don't have a lot of staff. So it's going to be based on their staffing plan and for an average shift. We want small parking lots. Lighting. This is something I personally am very passionate about. Dark sky standards. So full cutoff, fully shielded, aimed downward, white, warm light. We actually have a Kelvin rating in there. Timers, motion sensors, light sensors, because we're worried about the neighbors, but also about wildlife. Some of these data centers, they have studies that have been done, and it impacts migrating birds. They're so bright. So you have birds that basically like get steered off course because of the light from the data centers are so bright. So we want to try to minimize the amount of light pollution from the data centers. Noise. We spent so much time studying noise. So measure with a sound level meter includes every device on the property, measured from all the property boundaries, testing during the day and during the night. A-weighted. What's A-weighted? A-weighted, or A-level decibels, dBA is sometimes called. That is what we think of as normal human hearing, right? And it is usually focused on a carrier signal. My voice right now is a carrier signal. You're listening to me and trying to block out the sound of the air conditioner. You're blocking out the sound of traffic, of other people talking, shuffling papers, the sound of your own heartbeat or your own breathing. You're listening to my voice. That's the carrier signal. That's what dBA measures. dBc is low frequency, which is often background noise. Air conditioners, chillers, generators. That's what causes most of the complaints. Those are low amplitude, low frequency waves that travel really far. Like A-weighted stuff, sound barrier blocks it beautifully. C-weighted, sound barrier, it goes over, around, through it, right? A-weighted is like the waves at the beach. C-weighted is like a tidal wave. Big, slow, goes far. Oftentimes, C-weighted sound waves, they do not reach their maximum loudness, their maximum volume, to 1, 2, or 3 miles beyond where they start. Because the wave is not like this. The wave is like this. It may crest way over here. So, and then we have Z-weighted decibels, or what are called zero, where basically there's no weighting. And the reason we do that is because there are things that happen outside of human hearing. And so Z-weighting is something actually to help your pets. Because oftentimes you'll find like dogs and cats freaking out, or wildlife. And so the Z-weighting helps with that. We have limits during the day of 60 decibels, at night of 45 decibels. That's for all the different weight scales. Sound study is required to determine the pre-construction and anticipated. Twice-a-year sound checks. We have quite a detailed section in the ordinance on noise. Vibration, similarly, machines vibrate the ground. Tested from the property boundary, and we have, again, an extensive section trying to limit vibrations. Power usage. So this is how we're going to get at air quality and energy consumption at the same time. Also going to help with noise. We are prohibiting on-site power generation, excepting if it's solar power or temporary power. We are aware that these data centers do require temporary power, but that's only going to be allowed in emergencies. We'll get to that later. But we're requiring that they have basically no on-site power generation. That's going to require them to hook up to the grid. And that's going to do a number of things for us. Oftentimes, the data center companies will either hook to the grid or they'll look to bring their own power. And increasingly, they're looking to bring their own power. And that is because they don't want to have to deal with these ratepayer protection bills. You know, that's their way of saying to people in government, elected officials, that like, hey, we're not going to raise your prices because we're going to bring our own power. The problem with that is, although every data center will promise renewables or clean nuclear or geothermal, something, most of those technologies are far out into the future. They're far into the future. 1 megawatt. Remember we talked about megawatts earlier, and some of these data centers are 20, 50, 100, 200 megawatts. 1 megawatt of solar is 500 acres. Okay? 1 megawatt, 500 acres. At our current solar technology. Now, sometime in the future, technology improves all the time, right? I never thought I would have the totality of human knowledge in the palm of my hand, but I do. So at some point in time, yeah, that'll be great. But right now, diesel, natural gas. And even though those things are better than coal, every time you have a natural gas or a diesel power production facility, you get air pollution, asthma goes up, respiratory illness goes up, and you end up with a cancer cluster. And some of these data centers at large size, 10, 20, 50, 100 or more power plants all on site. No, you cannot generate your own power on site. No, no power plants for you. You can hook up to the grid. So that helps us with noise. That helps us with air pollution, right? Well, what about consumption? That's going to raise our electric bills. Yes, it might. But we feel that federal oversight, state oversight, the utilities commissions, the utilities themselves, ratepayers, the leverage of the collective body. Newspapers and TV and radio aren't going to come to Creedmoor to talk about our data center, if we should have one, and like how our data center is polluting. But they will write about Duke Energy all day long, right? And that puts pressure to bring those rates down. That puts pressure on those electric utilities to regulate their pollution, to come up with plans to deal with power output, right? So we're going to make sure that they do not generate power on our land, make them hook up to the utility, and then use that collective leverage to make sure that they're doing what they should. Same thing for water. They can't set up their own water utility on their site. They got to hook up to Seguasa. They got to pull water from them, and that means Seguasa. Remember, DEQ with those PFAS regulations they're working on? Bing, bing, bing. That's going to handle our PFAS. Because it's going to go through Seguasa. And DEQ, instead of us trying to manage PFAS, I don't know. I'm not an expert in PFAS. I don't know how to measure it. I don't know how to write the report. Seguasa will. DEQ will, right? That is how we're going to utilize our collective power to help regulate these things. So, and also on this one, I will point out that we are going to prohibit evaporative cooling, and we're going to require closed loop or equivalent technology or better, and have limits on flushes and refills of the system. All right, generators. They are going to have temporary power. We're requiring EPA Tier 4 standards, which is the highest standards for generators with the lowest pollution that they have. Testing is only during daytime hours, 8 to 5. Installed on ground level. You can't put these on the roof of the building because the sound travels further. So we want it on the ground. Operated only for testing, power disruption or outage, declared emergency. Cannot be used for normal operations, load balancing, or offsetting utility costs. You can it's there for emergency power, and you can only use it for emergency power. Fuel storage. We have limits on fuel storage. And I want to note with this, those EPA Tier 4 standards, we're not writing the standards for generators. We're borrowing good policy. Someone else has already taken and has the expertise to write generator standards. I don't have that expertise. But I can point to the best policy I can find and say, use that policy. That's what we do for fuel storage. We're doing the same thing. We're pointing to the International Fuel Gas Code and to the National Fire Protection Standards. So I don't have to write the fire protection standards. I can point to the national standards and say, you have to use those. Those are the best ones we have. Use that. Mobile power generation. The only reason we have this is because of Elon Musk, to be quite honest. He has a number of locations, Texas, Tennessee, and Mississippi most notably, where the local folks said, your power plants have to be regulated by our state laws, by the federal EPA. And Elon said, that's not fast enough. So there is a factory that manufactures turbines, gas-powered turbines and diesel-powered turbines, like jet engines. And they weld them to a flatbed 18-wheeler chassis. Drive them in, park them in rows like that, and then turn them on. And then Elon and his companies, I think this picture is the XAI Colossus facility, if I remember correctly. They turn them on, and then they say, hey, you can't regulate this, Mr. State or Mr. Federal person, because this is not actually a power plant. This is just a temporary generator, because it's on wheels. So I talked to a consultant he's an architect. He has designed and had built 7 data centers. That's what he does. That's part of what he does for a living. He builds data centers. Because when we did our research, all those things I showed you, We didn't just talk to the environmentalists. We didn't just talk to the regulators. We talked to people in the industry who build data centers. We talked to the Association of Builders and Contractors in North Carolina. We looked at people like Goldman Sachs. We talked to the people who are in the industry. And he was in the industry. He's like, if you have to regulate one thing that you're probably not thinking about, regulate mobile power generation. And that's what he told me. And so we have a section on mobile power generation and how it's regulated. Water quality. So we talked about power and water consumption. Now we're talking about water quality. And there are a couple things that we think about. One is non-storm water, water that's used for operations, and stormwater are separate. And never the two shall meet. And never the two shall meet. Our stormwater system goes straight into our rivers and our lakes. Our non-stormwater system, Seguasa system, goes and gets treated, right? Goes and gets measured and tested. Their operational water should never go into our stormwater system. Those two should stay separate and never meet. The water that is used for operations, we want it pre-treated before leaving the site. For heat, because sometimes the water coming out of these data centers is anywhere from 150 to 190 degrees. 210 is boiling, right? 210 is boiling. Imagine you're a fish swimming along and someone drops 170 degree water on you. You're poached, right? They sometimes add salt or other additives. Other additives include things like antifreeze, PFAS, azoles. Do you know what azoles is? It's antifungal agents to keep the mold from growing. You remember how there was all that ruckus about effluent coming from chicken and hog farms, where they had all those antibiotics that came out of the animals and went to the streams, and they started having super viruses and super bacteria? Same thing, but now we would have super fungus. So we want to make sure that we're not adding azoles to the water system. So we do allow a geothermal cooling system where they basically send the water underground and use the 56 or whatever degrees that the ground is to help cool the water. But we have quite a water quality section in the ordinance. Groundwater, pretty simple. You cannot use it. You cannot use groundwater for operations. Point blank, done. Do not draw from our aquifer. We do not allow it. Heat island effects, exterior structures must be colored white. We have exceptions for signage, things like safety and whatnot. Abandonment. So, I mentioned earlier, pardon me, it's like the gold rush, right? There's speculation happening. Not every company that is trying to build a data center is going to be around the next 10, 20 years. So just like during the gold rush, you ended up with some ghost towns where the town went bust, right? And then there's tumbleweeds going everywhere. There's going to be data centers that don't survive. And what would we do with a massive tract of land that has all these buildings and facilities on it? Someone else wants to come and use that land, but they don't want a data center. They're going to have to pay to demolish all of that so they can use the land, or we just have it sit there like a tobacco barn rotting over 100 years, right? What if there are contaminants on the site that need to be cleaned? We're requiring a performance bond in order to cover cost of abandonment and remediation. It's 10% of the estimated total tax valuation of the structures. This is due at the time of application. You got to give us 10% of what your estimated total tax valuation of the structures would be. So all your buildings, and this includes all of their pads and equipment, right? So everything that you're going to put down there, oh, we're going to drop, $1.5 billion worth of structures and equipment. Cool. We need 10% of that in the bond to us. That if you go belly up, we can go and clear it off. And that gets updated annually. Once we know the actual tax valuation, it gets updated to that every year. And then finally, data center specific violations. There are just certain things our code does not cover that need to be covered. And the ones that we're looking at are noise, vibration, mobile generators, and water quality standards. So I will say for this, in the fall, remember we talked about text amendments coming to you every 6 months. We're looking to do a big package of code enforcement this fall. We will probably touch on these again in the fall and try to beef those up even more. But right now, we do have violations for those issues. recommendation. So to move this forward, you would adopt the resolution 2026 R17, which is a statement of reasonableness and consistency. And you would adopt the ordinance 2026 O-5 data centers. And I will say this in closing. We don't know the future. None of us do. And there is no perfect solution. I'll say that again. There is no perfect solution. There are only trade-offs. But we're acting right now with the knowledge we have, knowing we're going to have to adjust in the future. And I will say, it's easy to suffer analysis paralysis, right? It's easy to think it through and like, oh, but one more thing, but one more thing, but one more thing. Mike Frangos isn't here, but he would be wagging his finger at me. But we've done our due diligence, and we do think we're presenting you a good, solid ordinance. Remember, currently we have nothing. So it's nothing or this, or wait and try to do something different, right? We think this is a good, solid ordinance. We've done our due diligence, and we hope that you'll approve it tonight. Thanks so much, and I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. I'll open it up. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Gleason.
I'll defer to Commissioner Moss if he wants to go. Set a date for a public.
No, sir. The public hearing, as I understand it, is scheduled for tonight. So I thought that was next.
Yeah, but we have to ask questions.
I was just going to open it up to see if the commissioners had any questions for Mr. Baker.
Yeah.
I'd like to defer those until after the public hearing. I think it'd be best to hear from the public.
Sounds good.
It's just my thought.
Sounds good. Yes, sir.
I disagree. I think that this board should have the right to ask this gentleman a question.
You can ask me before and after, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Go ahead. I open the floor to you.
First, just let me say thank you, for you've done what others have not done before you. I was very impressed in February, when I went into the office and spoke to Mike and said the new thing that's coming up fast is the data center problem. He said we're already working on it. So again, you're ahead of the curve there. Everything that you spoke about is relevant and covered in what needs to be done to protect our citizens from data center that we really hadn't given any thought about or whatever. I started a dial-up company in 1994. Right now, I'm the CIO of a company in New York that owns a data center. It's a 7,500 square foot traditional data center that we would love to have in Creedmoor. If the bank next door wanted to put a data center somewhere in Creedmoor that's the size of this building, we use no water. The only issue different than what you just talked about is we, again, having been where we are, don't have the generation system, or probably couldn't afford the generators that you would want to have on a hyper data center. That type of generator on a small data center, we have telephones. If we didn't have data centers, we wouldn't have telephones. If we didn't have data centers, we wouldn't have the internet that we have, that our kids have learned, that we use. We can get into an argument about AI from now till the cows come home, but AI has definite faults and definite positives. What we're talking about here is a community. I don't think that you could find an industrial site in the city of Creedmoor big enough to hold a hyper data center. So you take the hyper data center pretty much off the table. So let's not get in a fight where nobody wants a data center because they see the pictures of those mega data centers that are taking up 50, 60 acres for the building. Forget about the property. So I just want to make sure that we get this type of text amendment passed, it's a start. It's not a finish by no stretch of the imagination. And that we protect ourselves, not from the big guy. The big guy ain't gonna come here. We gotta protect ourselves from the traditional databases, data centers. So again, what I really wanna say is that when we've looked around at what's been in the paper and how people have complained about not wanting data centers and not wanting data centers, I must say that the planning department of the city of Creedmoor went far beyond what anybody else has done. And that's all you can ask, and that's all our citizens can ask, is that it's for your protection. And I gotta thank our planning board, who sat through meetings that I could understand some stuff, and they're saying, oh my God, what, how are they gonna understand it? But it took months. But 21 different conditions, or 22. We heard the other night at meetings where there was no real conditions set. Well, Creedmoor set 22. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Gleason. Any more? Commissioner Kaczynski?
Dallas, I want to thank you so much for all you've done. You have done a lot of work. A lot more, in the bibliography was an hour and a half read all in itself. But I'm glad to know you did the research, and there's no doubt that you did. The very one thing that I want to say is no data centers unless it's in an industrial zone. And we don't have any industrial zones available inside the city limits right now.
So, a couple things. First of all, thank you, Commissioner Kaczynski. One, the ordinance as written, hyperscale, traditional, or in industrial. Micro are allowed in industrial, C15, C56, and Main Street. For example, an argument can be made that our monopole right here has a micro data center attached to it. Okay, so we need to allow that in the Main Street, because otherwise, as Kevin will tell you, that could be a down zoning, and we would run afoul of the new state law that was passed in, 2024, Kevin? Yeah.
And I think we generate about $150,000 in revenue for the city from that.
Yes, it does provide revenue to the city. So our ordinance, if you'll remember, in order to not have it be invalidated, cannot be arbitrary and capricious, and cannot have standards so high that no one could possibly meet them. If they're so high no one could possibly meet them, it's effectively a ban and would likely be overturned in a court should it be challenged. So one of the ways that we get around that is we have those different sizes, and we treat the different sizes differently. So the micro does have the flexibility, but the traditional, the medium size, and the largest size, those are industrial only. The second thing I'll say is, currently, I don't know, I think we maybe have one or two parcels in the Northwest that might have 50 acres or more for a hyperscale center at that size. What would really happen is, if I'm going to spend $2 billion to build a data center, hey, I'll buy your property for $1 million. I'll buy your property for $1 million. I'll buy your property for $1 million. Everybody gets $1 million. Give me all your properties. And now I've got more than enough. Right. So I don't worry about, or I don't think the limiting factor is what currently exists. It's if you had the resources, what could you assemble? What could be? It could be something right on the edge of the city, and they want to build it and annex into the city. You know, there's all kinds of different ways they could do it. I hope that answers the question.
We also do not have a water allocation.
We do not currently. So currently, if a data center came to us, we could not allocate anyway. That is actually one of the things that has protected us. When we talked about a moratoria, one of the reasons that we were like, no, we don't think we need a moratoria this time. One is that we were working on an ordinance, and a moratoria is just to give you time to do the ordinance. We got the ordinance, so we don't need a moratoria. The other reason was because even if they came and applied, we have no water to give them, so they couldn't build.
Right. And the only other thing is that the Sigwassa I-85 sanitary sewer project is being built based on 20 years of service, 10 to 20 years of service. And if a data center was built here, that's gonna blow that. And then Wassa would need to come up with a whole nother plan. And that's something else we absolutely don't want. But I wanted to thank you so much. I know you sat down with me also, and we talked about, a lot of this stuff. And I appreciate all the time that you've spent with this, because it's way over a lot of people's heads. And I know just enough to be dangerous right about now. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Commissioner Wells?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I know we still have the public hearing that we need to go through, but I did want to put you on notice that at the appropriate time, I'm going to be making a motion, actually two motions. Number one, to adopt the statement of consistency, and then to also approve the ordinance as well. So I'll be making those two motions. But before the public speaks, I had hoped to say it after they spoke, but I'll do it now. I'd like to thank, along with my colleagues, thank the staff, our planning board and the staff. I know Mr. Robertson's here tonight from the planning board. They put a tremendous amount of work into getting this done for us, for our community. So I am, like my colleagues, extremely grateful for that. One of the things that, I don't know if this is funny to say, but one of the things that I've actually enjoyed about going through this process has been the engagement with citizens. I've talked to folks on both sides of the fence, folks that believed that we needed to do something, other folks that were opposed to us doing something. So I got both sides of it. So I will say it has been very educational for me personally, and I appreciate all of the public input. I look forward to hearing from the public this evening as well. You know, as I have thought about this, this challenge, if you want to call it that, this is not new for Granville County. In the mid-2000s, and I've talked about this before, in the mid-2000s, Granville County faced three separate challenges with projects. The first one was the superconducting super collider. That's where the federal government targeted Granville County federal land over in the Butner area, where they smash protons and neutrons together and do whatever their research is. And that was challenge number one for Granville County. That was followed up with the state of North Carolina hazardous waste incinerator challenge that a lot of folks will remember. That is where actually the gap over on Belltown Road in Oxford is located right now, thanks to the work of some really smart lawyers, Kevin. We were able to fight that off. And then last but not least was the National Bioagro Defense Facility. Is the facility. It's currently located in Plum Island, New York. That is where they do research on anthrax and other nasty chemical warfare stuff. So obviously that was not very positive for our community as well. And I mention those things because the pitch for all three of those was very similar to what we have seen with data centers. They talk about economic impact, they talk about jobs and things of that nature. But what they don't talk about, the things that you've covered in this ordinance and the planning board has covered in this ordinance, are the impacts to our environment, as it relates to water and sewer, as it relates to air quality, and all of those things. And I think that speaks to the strength of what y'all have, the work that y'all have done on our behalf. And I think it's important for the city of Creedmoor to acknowledge the work that Butner did with their moratorium. I think that was a great first step for our community. I think they led the way, and I am very happy that they did that. As you mentioned earlier, the county passed a regulation last night. I think that was another step in a positive direction for Granville County, and I hope that this board, we will do our part tonight in passing our ordinance. One of the things I hope that we do dig into a little bit deeper, I think Mayor Pro Tem Wilkins is going to mention some potential sites as it relates to here in the city of Creedmoor, where not the hyper ones, but where there could be some sightings that we want to pay close attention to. And, you know, just making sure that we understand that not taking action is something that we have to. we're not in a position where we can just sit idly by and not take any action. So again, thank you for your work. I appreciate the comments of my colleagues on the board, and that's it for me, Mr. Mayor. But at the appropriate time, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to make those two motions. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Way?
Kevin, how long is a moratorium usually good for?
Well, it depends. So, what the statute tells us is that you can impose a moratorium for a reasonable period. As part of kind of the procedural process that you go through to adopt a moratorium, is to identify what the problems or the issues are that you're trying to address that kind of necessitate a moratorium, what you're going to do to address those issues, and then you estimate a reasonable time it should take to accomplish that. I think in our case, it might be tricky to come up with a specific amount of time that would be appropriate for moratorium, because presumably the goal of the moratorium would be, as Dallas said a few times now, would be to give the city time to draft a data center ordinance. Our staff has already done that. So I think you need to be able to identify very clearly what issues the city faces that are not addressed or could not be addressed through the ordinance that's already been drafted, and then kind of make a reasonable guess or estimate about the amount of time it would take to solve or attempt to solve those problems. The very orderly answer, I guess, is that the answer I'm just not sure what a reasonable amount of time would be.
So the country boy response would be is basically based on getting the information to draft an ordinance by your staff members, because when it's presented to a board to make a decision, they don't have the information to make a decision on it, so they ask for the moratorium so staff can bring back an ordinance that would be strong enough to proceed. Is that correct?
Generally speaking, that's right. So the moratorium would be imposed to allow staff to study whatever the problem is that's facing the community, to draft, to bring back some recommendations in different ways, different types of ordinances that could be drafted to address the problem, then allow staff to actually draft that ordinance and bring it back for a public hearing.
So the reason the moratorium would work for us is because we were proactive in taking all the steps that have been put in place with the public input and opinions and our planning board and the countless opportunities we've had for people to come and express their feelings on it. Technology's all around us. We all know it. It's there. We all use it every day. Absolutely. I'm not an expert in this. That's why we have you. Thank you very much for all the input you put. This is a lot of information that is dissected. And like you said, the information you put in here, there's a lot of stuff to go and read. And it gets very detailed. And you have to ask people about this kind of stuff. Like, hey, what does this mean? I don't understand. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being kind of like a subject matter expert and digging deeper into this.
I know enough to know that I still don't know everything.
Know enough to be dangerous. So thank you. So that's one of the things I wanted to put out there is why some people are like, oh, well, these communities are doing moratoriums. Well, yeah, that's great. They're doing a moratorium, but that's only putting off what's going to happen inevitably anyway, because you have to come back to it. And if it's challenged in court, they're going to say, well, why did you have a moratorium? You've had the opportunity to present it. You need to go ahead and handle it. I think that the information you presented tonight is the most in-depth that I've seen locally around us of any information I've seen provided by any county board of commissioners or local municipality that's been approaching this topic. So once again, as everyone else has echoed, I appreciate the input that you've had. Thank you for giving me your legalese and allowing me to just understand it in my own terms. So that's all I have.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Dallas, I'll join my colleagues in saying thank you. You and the planning board, I think this puts us ahead of the curve. You set aside some concerns that I have. And when I looked at the Granville County 1-2 zoning map, I asked you, could you translate that into actual addresses for me? Which you did, and I want to share that with the public. It was 7 addresses you came up with. 1025 Tech Drive, 4026 Stovall Road, 6514 Airport Road, 5612 Tabbs Creek Road, 110 Pecan Street, 100 East Parish Street, and 2128 Horner Waldorf Road. So I wanted to make sure the public was aware those are possibilities for a data center. And again, thank you. Are those addresses in the city?
Those were,
Closest to Creedmoor.
what the Mayor Pro Tem asked for me yesterday, was Granville County, had last night, their hearing for their ordinance, and they put out their ordinance ahead of time. And part of their ordinance was, how the county plans to handle this. And they were looking at their I-2, their general industrial zones, as that is going to be where, if you want to have a data center in the county, it has to be an I-2 zone. And so Mayor Pro Tem Wilkins was asking me, what are those addresses? And so I gave him a list of the addresses. Now, some of them, I'll be honest with you, Mayor Pro Tem, some of them, they have multiple addresses.
Right, so you said that.
More for each of those. But those are the clusters. And most of them are around Oxford.
Yep.
There is one, that is the one on
Horner Waldorf Road, closest.
That's the closest one. It's about a mile north of the city, so off of Highway 15. So, but that currently has an occupant. So that's currently like a timber operation, if I remember correctly.
Unless it gets bought out.
Unless it gets bought.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Mayor, Dallas, you may correct me, but 110 Pecan Street is in Creedmoor. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, that's Peachtree Street.
No, Pecan Street is on your list, sir.
That's another Pecan Street. We looked it
Different
up.
Pecan Street.
We looked it up.
Okay.
Just like Freddie Krueger, there's an Elm Street in every city.
All right. I like it.
All right. Dallas, thank you so much. And at this time, I'll open up the public hearing. First public hearing speaker is Mr. Mark Manny. Mr. Mark Manny. We're going to do 3 minutes and state your name and address, please. Yes, sir.
Mark Manny, 1484 North Side Road. I'm in favor of a moratorium. I'd just like to state that, and I am against the data center being put here, a large one. And I want to read something from a Christian investigative reporter named Lee Holman I have been following for years. Now, this is going to be a different take, because I'm coming at this from a high level, because I'm a conspiracy realist. I'm not a theorist. So let's go. Globalist financial guru Larry Fink, who's an interesting fellow, his company owns about 1/3 of the Western world, is scared to death that Americans will wake up, rise up, and one day start sabotaging AI data centers, because they're really AI surveillance centers and they're super intrusive. Fink admits he fears this. He says that ordinary Americans will one day use inexpensive drones to attack and destroy billion-dollar AI data centers. Now, this is on the internet. I'm not making this up. He really said this. The bigger picture is to create enough AI computing power to implement a surveillance state, a 24/7 control grid similar to what they have in China to keep people in line and under the thumb of oppressors. This control grid will include a biometric digital DI for every citizen, along with digital programmable stablecoins, which is coming, or some other version of digital currency. All human movement and all financial transactions, no matter how big or small, will be tracked in real time. Flock cameras will be tied into this. Free speech will continue to be phased out of existence once people realize that saying, writing, or posting facts or coming to meetings like this and speaking outside the mainstream will get your bank account turned off and your digital money restricted. Now, this is happening in Canada. This is happening all over the world. And I'm afraid it's coming here, and I'm afraid this is going to be the tool they're going to use. So keep this in mind. I'm not talking about the water or the electricity. That's already well established. He sees proof that the ruling class knows a revolt is coming, and they're preparing for it. Now, Gallup just did a poll, and they found out that 76 of Americans are against data centers. Right across every race, color, creed, religion, economic status, it didn't matter. 76% of Americans are firmly against this. Newsweek recently published an article titled "Cost Me the Election, Data Centers Trigger Voter Backlash." A wave of voter anger over massive data center projects is beginning to reshape U.S. politics, with local officials and senior lawmakers losing elections after backing controversial developments tied to the artificial intelligence boom. If you were in that meeting last night at the county, that audience was not happy at all. In Utah on Wednesday, State Senate President J. Stewart Adams, one of the most powerful Republicans in the state, lost his primary election after supporting a major data center development near the Great Salt Lake in one of the clearest signs yet of the growing political risks tied to the industry. At the local level, the following is just as direct. Is that 3 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is a radical view. It's true.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Manning. Next we have Mr. Michael Foster.
Hello, Michael Foster. I live on 1512 Radford Drive. And let me start by saying that I was very pleased to see some of my points actually raised in the city planner's very thoughtful presentation. But in general, I would ask the board and I would ask the community to meet data center proposals with an open mind. Many communities throughout this country have embraced data centers, and they've been able to create thousands of good construction jobs, lower their property taxes, give teachers bonuses, upgrade their emergency services. Whenever a project is under consideration, there are always going to be details to hammer out. There are always going to be things that we hope to get out of it, and I'm confident that this board is going to do a wonderful job of negotiating on our behalf. All I ask of the community and all I ask of the board is to keep an open mind to the future of our economy. Because if we fail to do that, we're going to be left behind. That has happened to too many places in this country, and I don't want to see it happen to my hometown. I love Creedmoor more than any place in the world, and I know all of you feel the same. So I would just ask you all to keep an open mind, and that we all.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Samantha Harris.
Samantha Harris, 2113 Orchard Court. Good evening, commissioners and fellow citizens. I won't be before you long. I just have concerns I want to share as food for thought, since it seems as if the data centers will be coming very soon. Thank you, Mr. Baker, for addressing most of my concerns a little already. As I've been reading, water seems to be a concern for some, as we already have a struggling infrastructure and unwanted high amounts of chemicals in our water. How will the data centers affect our water? If it will not affect it, then that's great. But then the question becomes if there will be any monetary kickbacks to those who use to partner with SACWASA to get the much needed upgrades to our failing infrastructure already in place. Money seems to have been an issue in the past conversations, so I'm just trying to offer what may be some helpful solutions to becoming, if some money becomes available. Question number 2, do we have plans in place to hold the data centers and Duke Energy accountable to the increase in electricity they may use so that the citizens are not hit with higher energy bills once they come? None of what I've said thus far might even be relative to the data centers coming. However, I want to make sure that what we are thinking, what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling is out there so that someone can at least review and answer these questions. Growth is inevitable, and I think that it is important that we all understand that. But I don't want growth to come at the expense of ruining the entire growth process. I will be the first to say I don't know a lot about data centers, but I do pray that if and when they come, they will be more beneficial than from an economical standpoint, instead of a deficit of an already strained economy in Granville County. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Fred Johnson.
Thank you. 311 9th Street in Butner. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. Wow. My first question is, are your slides available to the public?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. Last night, the Granville County Board of Commissioners walked into a massive trap. The county staff is working at complete cross purposes. On the one hand, they just rushed through a minimalist text amendment. 50 feet is the setback, unlike your 500s. Sorry, 600. The county's 50. And to your question about the addresses, that's all been changed. The amendment, and Mike can attest to this because they did it at the planning meeting a week before, is they changed the language. They changed one word, right? They deleted the word current I-2. So in other words, and this is where it gets to be a little bit of a trap, is that by removing that word, a developer no longer has to buy a parcel in, say, Triangle North. Instead, they can target any cheap tract of open timberland near the I-85 fiber optic corridor, which is what they want to do. That has its own massive attribute, and if they touch into that one, most economic development's going to end for all the states. The means a developer, okay, I just want to say that. Oxford and yours, on the other hand, you all did the complete opposite. You have very strict, as he points out, high standards. They have absolutely none. And I'll tell you, I talked to a county commissioner today who didn't even realize that that there were actually standards in it, and there are. On the exact same night, and this is something you might want to add another slide. The planning staff advocated for adopting the North Falls Lake Area Study, which they did to their comprehensive plan. In that study, the number one overwhelming concerns from our citizens was the severe threat to our water supply and local infrastructure. So they really went in the same night, rushing in two different opposite directions. And I do want to point out something he pointed out that was never mentioned last night. If they really focused on the legislative role of the commissioners, in that they didn't want to go the quasi-judicial role. They wanted that legislative role so they could say no to an applicant if the community objected. Well, he points out correctly that they would lose in court. Because of that, there was a court precedent set in 1997, Gregory versus the County of Harnett. And it sounds like it almost could have been a data center. That court basically came up with that term, capricious and arbitrary. A county cannot flip. If it has a standard, it is stuck to those standards with that applicant. It cannot, at the later point, say, oh, well, we really don't like those standards, we want to change them. They can't do that. And again, I spoke to a commissioner today who said, yeah, we can. Well, no, you can't. It's clear in that, and none of that came up last night. My 3 minutes. Well, I just want to say, great job. Look forward to your slides.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Megan Black.
Hey, I'm Megan Black, 2070 Longwood Drive. Great job. You answered a lot of my questions, a lot of things that I had planned, literally wrote, so thank you. So with that, I'm going to make it short and sweet. Most people in this room have used AI. Everyone in here has used the data center. I think it's smart to understand that these things are necessary. However, having plans, if we're going to allow them, making sure that we're allowing them with the safety of the community is important. So I am here to play devil's advocate because I know sometimes what is idealistic isn't realistic. We might not ever get a data center, but if we do, just make sure it's safe. They need to be held to a high standard, the benefits to the community, which I feel like you have really, really worked hard on. So I hope you guys really listen and consider everything he says, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak on the data center before I close public hearing? All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing. I'll open back the discussion for the commissioners. Commissioner Moss?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question to the attorney. If I recall correctly from our last, text amendment, we did two motions, one for the statement of consistency and the other for the adoption of the ordinances. That's correct? Okay. So,
Just a point of clarification. Planning board is a statement of consistency. You guys get to have a statement of reasonableness and consistency. The state added a word to yours. You have, it's reasonableness and consistency.
But it's the statement that's set out in the budget.
okay,
In one resolution.
that did confuse me just a hair. Okay, very good. All right. And I know I'll go ahead and make a motion so you can open it up for discussion. So, Mr. Mayor, I would like to move that we adopt 2026-ZTA-02, which is I'm sorry, I read the wrong line. My fault. 2026-R-17, which is the statement of consistency. That was my error. That is my motion.
All right. There's been a motion to approve the resolution 2026-R-17, the statement of consistency and reasonableness. It's been second. Discussion? Commissioner Kozinski?
So this is a question, Kevin. Once we adopt this down the road, if amendments are needed, we can amend it, correct?
That's correct.
To make it tighter or...
Now, keep in mind, of course, that once we adopt this ordinance, and this goes for everything that the city currently regulates, every use that the city currently regulates through the CBO, we will be subject to the downzoning restrictions, right? So we can't create non-conforming uses through amendments to the text of the CBO and that sort of thing. But you know, with that kind of caveat, we can certainly amend and kind of tinker with and modify the regulations that apply to the various different types of data centers defined in this text.
Thank you, sir. No question. Thank you.
Any more discussion? All right, it's been motioned and seconded that we approve the resolution 2026-R-17 with the statement of the consistency and reasonableness. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2026-O as in October -5.
All right.
I got a second.
It's been a motion to approve the ordinance 2026-O-5. Is there any discussion? Seeing there's no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. That was awesome. Thank you. I learned a lot right there. I mean, and I'm pretty tech savvy, but I learned so much through that presentation. Thank you. I know. All right. All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
If I could just recant one funny story. So Mr. Foster, I believe his name is, Mr. Foster, I met Mr. Foster outside before we came in tonight. And he said, "Oh, we actually have met. You were mayor when I was in middle school." So, thank you for dating me, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you.
He's been around, Mr. Foster. I think he was mayor when I was in middle school.
Probably in elementary school.
Yeah. All right. So we have an update on Creedmoor Veterans Association. Commissioner Kozinski?
Thank you. Due to the lack of increasing membership of the Creedmoor Veterans Organization, and they could not draw the number of members they would need to have a successful fundraiser, the memorial brick sales and hometown hero banners have continued to sell and raise money to help pay off the monument. Therefore, at our last meeting, the members of the Creedmoor Veterans Organization have decided to use their efforts and join the Granville County Veterans Affairs Committee. there had been some talk in, a Granville Affairs Committee meeting, and I had heard that Creedmoor wasn't doing anything for their veterans, and that is absolutely not true. We have a veteran service officer that's here, has been here every Wednesday for 2 years, at least, and now has increased the hours to every single day of the week by appointment. Wednesday are walk-ins. So we have decided to use the members' efforts to join the Granville County Veterans Affairs Committee, and the Granville County Veterans Affairs Committee has voted to accept the municipality of Creedmoor into their committee to make it stronger, to make it larger. They are planning on having meetings in Butner, in Creedmoor, in Oxford, and moving them around so that maybe we could make sure that the needs of our veterans are met. The American Legion Hall down here was discussed for a lot, but we haven't found out any information on that. The Granville County Affairs Committee is going to look into seeing what they can do about getting the American Legion a little bit more active. And I think they have a shortage of members also, and that's what the problem is. Just for a few, you can't get a lot done, but there are many. There's many veterans in this area that need to be helped, that need to be part of something, and I'm hoping that this will change it. I would like to thank the veterans who made the CVO possible in Creedmoor from the very beginning. They attended meetings, solicited donations, and worked so hard to encourage new members. At this point, I'd like to thank the chair, Charles Griffin. I'd like to thank Virgil Douglas, Bob Gorham, Danny Emery, Victor McAllister, and Doris Williams for their commitment to help veterans in Creedmoor. God bless all our veterans, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Commissioner Lozinski. Review on contracted vendor list. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners. At a special call meeting on May the 26th to discuss the FY27 budget, the topic of contracted service vendors came up. There was questions regarding the possibility of frivolous contracts in the budget recommendations that might be terminated to reduce the overall cost of operating city government. I had reported at that time that in 2023, I created a Excel spreadsheet to monitor and track contract expiration dates, as well as dollar amounts for each contract. I have included at your workstation, and it's in your agenda package, a little bit larger version of that list of contracted services, and I would like to just do a review of that quickly here. So it's listed by vendors, the date of the original agreement, the expiration date, which is very important in what we focus on to be sure we don't have one that expires, the terms of the agreements, the descriptions of what those services are, contract amounts, and what the approval authority is, either the Board of County City Commissioners or the City Manager. The green areas on this sheet reflect no cost or revenues to the city. The left column is broken down by departments, so you can see it that way. I have highlighted the yellow area on the right side where the manager's authority level, which rests from 10,000 under his discretionary spending level, which is 10 and under for contracts. And I have received some questions regarding engineering services because there's a variety of them listed here. And I have asked Carl tonight to be prepared to go over those and answer any questions that any board member may have about those services. But every contract listed on the sheet that we monitor and track are needed services requested by department heads and monitored and managed by those department heads. And the board sees probably 90% of all of them except what's within my discretionary limit. So I'd like to stop and ask any board member if you've got specific questions. We'd certainly like to take those up and answer those, and give the board answers to those questions to assure you that there are no frivolous contracts in the city government. So with that.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Carl, I want you to explain this to me like I'm in kindergarten, okay? Each description on the engineering firms says on-call civil engineering consultant. In total, it's almost $500,000. Can you explain to me what each firm does, why they're needed, why do we need all five if they all have the same description?
Yes, sir. So the on-call firms cost nothing unless the board approves to go forward with a specific task order. So about 2 years ago, we advertised and we hired brought six firms on board so we could choose them for different skill sets for different projects. So the first one, JMT, they assist with writing a traffic impact analysis ordinance. Let me first say that the amount shown in the column is what was spent last year. It's not recurring. It was just a one-time that year.
I understand.
These things were funded. So JMT did the traffic impact analysis ordinance. Then RK&K, they designed the Main Street Public Parking Project. They wrote the emergency action plan for Lake Rogers Dam. And through their sub Schnabel Engineering, they're working on the Lake Rogers Dam analysis and then designing the repair. So that's why RK&K has the large amount by them. Summit Engineering, they conducted a feasibility study for the 4 sidewalk gap projects. Sykes Environmental Engineering, they've not been assigned a task order yet. Weatherville Engineering, they completed the Dogwood Drive, Whitehall Drive drainage area study, and now they're working on the design for that area. And they've just started working on the South Elm Street drainage study. And Wooten has just begun designing the roadway improvements for Douglas Drive and the drainage repair for Holly Creek Lane. If you were to jump down a few lines, you'll see Stimmel. That's an on-call stormwater consultant. When we receive a site plan for review, they review the plan for compliance with the Falls Lake rules and other stormwater-related issues. So things like fast-paced urgent care and Mavis Tire, they had to review those site plans, relatively small, but something like frames crossing the subdivision, I mean, that's a huge thing. So they only take money when you give them work. So it's not a recurring thing, it's just as.
That's all I have on them. Thank you, Carl.
Commissioner Gleason?
No question.
Commissioner Moss?
Actually, no questions. I did want to make an editorial comment. There is a typo under the description, Mike.
Yes, sir.
For Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T. It's monopole tenant, T-E-N-A-N-T-E, tenant.
Thank you.
I won the spelling bee in the 4th grade. I'll always be proud of that.
Commissioner Kozinski?
So, Carl, when you just talked about site plan approval, the Community Development Department doesn't do site plan approvals. We have to hire outside services to do that for us?
It goes to the technical review committee. Lots of different people look at it in different areas. So the stormwater is such a very detailed, involved specialty.
Yeah.
That's why we use Stimmel for that.
Okay.
But no, we're all involved in it. Alex looks at it for his piece. I look at it. It goes to Seguasa, just far and wide.
Right. Thank you.
Commissioner Webb? All right. City Manager? City Manager?
So I did discuss this with Kevin, and I've discussed it with staff. There are the current discretionary for the managers at $10,000. I received a contract today. This is just a good example of, so we received a contract request today from Milner, who provides our copiers and provides the maintenance for those copiers on a 4-year term, 48 months, 4-year term. So to enter into this contract, it totals $12,500, which is beyond my discretionary. It is for 4 years, so actually it's $3,110 per year. But to enter into a 4-year, it's above my limit, but I would be committing the city to a 4-year, $13,000 contract, 12.5. In talking with Lee, and there's a couple of things that we could do to improve this process. One is to either amend our existing purchasing policy to provide more details on spending authority, or draft a separate contracting policy specific to contracts, and bring that back to the board. Another suggestion was to include the manager's authority to execute items approved in the budget amendment in the budget ordinance each year, because once the board approves funding, it's actually been approved already. So it's just a matter of executing the contract when we get it prepared to be approved and to be able to move forward. I've had one commissioner suggested every contract, regardless of the amount, should come before this board. That would take all of my discretionary away, and you'll see every one that comes down the pipe. Another option might be to adjust the manager's discretionary limit to some other number, which would allow me to do the 13 or 15 or whatever the board determines. I would invite any comments from legal about what we've talked about and his thoughts. Kevin, if you would.
Sure, yeah, I mean, so first what I'll say is, it would be uncommon for boards to approve every contract that comes to the city. That would grind, kind of the day-to-day operations of the city to a halt, right? There would only be 2 opportunities for any contract to come before the city. Everything would need to wait to happen until the board would review and approve, and then any comments or revisions to the contract the board might request would need to go be negotiated, then wait to come back. I think much more common for local governments to have kind of detailed contracting policies where there are specific and detailed rules kind of governing who has the authority to enter into what sort of contract, what dollar threshold different individuals have to enter in, may enter into contracts for on behalf of the city. But that gives the city staff a little bit more flexibility to respond to situations as they arise, to negotiate terms and then execute contracts on the city's behalf. But ultimately, this is a decision for the board to make and to kind of decide how you all want to review, any sort of contract that might come before the city that the city might need to enter into, and whether you want to delegate authority, and if so, how much authority or under what conditions you want to make that give those delegations to the city manager or other members of city staff. So I think this is an opportunity. This is something that's kind of been kicking around for quite a long time. But I think this is a good opportunity for the board to comment on and maybe give some direction to me and the city staff about what we can do better or what we can change about the city's contracting method and policies.
Thanks, Kevin. Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't disagree. It would be a disaster for us to approve every contract. I also don't think it's a need to change the discretionary spending from 10,000. When you have something like this, a one-off, you can bring that to the board to approve. And I'd like to see it stay the way it is.
Commissioner Moss?
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, just so I'm understanding before I make my comment, I thought I heard you say you're suggesting that we leave things the way they are?
Yes, sir.
That's what you're saying?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
There you go. Okay. All right. In that case, I will go ahead and say what I was planning to say is that this whole discussion for me kind of boils down into what I refer to as micromanaging our people. And my interpretation of that, especially in this environment, we're saying we don't trust our people. And I do. So I'm in complete agreement that we leave things the way they are.
Commissioner Kaczynski?
I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. We've seen what happened in the town of Cary when the board was not involved with any decisions. So I agree with leaving it the way it is.
Commissioner Way? Your turn.
Well, no, I never want to be left.
I gotta get you. Good.
Hey,
I'm good with that.
Good, okay.
Kevin's coming to you, buddy.
Well, I like to stay on the cusp of things. Common practice, city manager's budget approval processes. I know your firm deals with this type. Is 10,000 a normal limit, or is it a lower limit? Is it in the middle? Is it about right?
I think for a community the size of the city of Creedmoor, that's probably appropriate. But I think maybe the broader issue, and Mike can chime in a little bit, I don't want to speak for him, that I think there's not really a whole lot of guidance about what that $10,000 limit means, right? So I think the example that the contract that Mike brings up as an example is approximately $3,000. It's a 4-year contract for routine maintenance work on City Hall infrastructure. It's approximately $12,000 total over the course of the 4-year contract. You can't approve that routine contract, unilaterally under that $10,000 cap. Certainly, if the policy were to dictate that he can approve up to $10,000 in any contract per year, this is something that he could take care of right away. Now, I think the point that y'all make is a good one, right? Is that this is a 4-year contract. There's very little reason why it could not come back to the board for reapproval well ahead of the expiration of that 4-year term. But I think ultimately the question becomes, if for whatever reason we've got a set of very busy agendas and it can't make its way before the board for consideration, there are any number of reasons why the contract might not make it back before the board before the expiration of the current 4-year contract.
For example, when he approved, Commissioner, approved the fireworks contract, it was for $11,000. No one crucified him. We understood that. So we have that flexibility.
Sure, and I think the point ultimately is that the policy of this draft does not provide any flexibility, right? It says $10,000. And so if there are some changes to the policy that we think ought to be made to give Mike more flexibility, I think that's
That started the conversation. Can we place this on our next agenda for discussion with your input now that you know my train of thought? And
I'm happy to. Is the question? Would you like me to come back with maybe some
proper
more background on how other communities that our firm works with?
Yeah, just some proper procedure instead of just a blanket. He's got $10,000. Well, that's great, but just like you said, the point come up. This contract exceeds his limit, but it's a 4-year contract, and it's only, a little over $3,000 a year. So technically, it is in his approval, but the way the contract was written. So that kind of activity to give us a little bit more leeway with his responsibility.
Sure. I mean, and ultimately, what I'll say is, I think it's a discussion. The board is responsible for expending the public funds for a public purpose, and the board can delegate. More or less, the board can delegate that authority however you all feel, a majority of the board feels is appropriate. So I think we can certainly bring back kind of some ideas about how that policy could be amended to be more flexible in certain circumstances. But I think that's I don't want to put the cart before the horse and spend time and city funds preparing options.
Understood, but the correct climate of the nature that we're in this day and age. Cities as large as Cary had an issue with spending. Cities as small as Rocky Mount's pretty good size, but some city over in Franklinton area, I believe, or in Franklin County is having some problems now. That those issues don't discriminate against any one person as far as the spending goes. But as my colleagues have already said, every contract doesn't need to come before us. However, we do need to have some leeway in the way that our wording is for the manager so he doesn't have to bring everything before us. And that's just, we need to spiffy it up a little bit.
Sure, and I think that's an appropriate discussion topic for a board work session.
Commissioner Kaczynski?
So, we are in this conversation about contracts, and, I don't agree that it's a matter of trust. This is not a matter of trust. I know that I've spoken to the finance director before about the discretionary funding. How does it work? Is it $10,000 a month? Is it $10,000 a year? Is it $10,000 an issue? There's no policy. And I wasn't here when the discretionary funding went from $5,000 to $10,000. And I didn't have a vote on it, but, you know, $10,000 in this day and age that's nothing. But, I agree that a discretionary policy should be drafted. There was a situation, at one of the boards that I serve on where the discretionary fund spending was $8,000. It was a line item change. It was $8,000. And the person who had the authority moved $8,000 one week, $8,000 the next week, and $8,000 the third week. And because there was no policy, it wasn't wrong, and it was within the $8,000. We just went through a horrible budget season, and we are trying to watch our costs. So I think that this is something we really do need to address. And, you know, like we all said, the town of Cary's got, I know you would never buy us Ray-Bans for $160 or however much money they were, but I do like them. And I know Lee would never allow him to do it. So, no, Lee would never allow, Lee would quit before that would happen. But, yeah, I think that we could possibly use a policy on discretionary spending, and not knowing what a contract is or what it's about, I don't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, well, and I would say that's an important distinction as well, right? Because there's a distinction between who is authorized to move money around within the city's accounts versus who is authorized to execute a binding contract on behalf of the city. And that's, you know, right now, we is entitled to move or transfer money within the city's accounts. I think then the question becomes, you know, do we have a separate policy that authorizes the manager or some other, you know, department head, you know, however granular you want to get, to enter into contracts with different, you know, with agencies or with vendors for different reasons? And that's separate and distinct from the authority to actually move money and allocate it to a particular contract. And I think that's part of the broader issue. Like, a contracting policy sounds simple, but there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes, you know, in terms of who can actually, beyond just who can sign the contract on the city's behalf, and up to what dollar amount may that person encumber the city funds for. You know, that there's more about them, you know, who is authorized to move that money around, what steps and what process needs to happen in order, you know, to carry that out. A lot of we all see the budget amendments that we have to do every time money is moved around, you know, following an appropriation or a contract. So it's a kind of a broader, you know, system that I think, you know, if that's something that the board wants to consider doing, that there's a lot that goes into it. And it'll involve Lee, it'll involve Mike, it'll involve, of course, comment and input from the board generally, just to kind of put something on paper that, you know, protects the public funds, but also gives city staff the flexibility or discretion to do what needs to be done to keep city business functioning smoothly.
That's on Natalie.
Yes, so just to bring a little clarity to the conversation and kind of try to bring it all together. Currently, the city has a purchasing policy. In that policy, it talks about, of course, the informal bidding process that's regulated by state statutes and what's required in that. But then also in there, it talks about the limit outside of those items that does and does not require board approval. In that section, it discusses things that are not included in the budget that has to come to the board that exceeds $5,000. If it's under $5,000 that's not anticipated in the budget, the manager has that authority to purchase or enter into an agreement. Then it also talks about if it's over $5,000, it has to come to the board for approval. Nowhere in our policy it talks about, and this is where we kind of need some guidance in, we kind of go back through the purchase policy or however the board wants to address it, as far as the manager's authority, and kind of spell it out a little bit more, because nowhere in our policy it talks about the $10,000. I think that's kind of where the gray area is right now when we are discussing what comes to the board or what authority of the city manager to enter a contract or purchase a good.
Thank you, Lee. Commissioner Gleason?
Everything that we spend is in the budget, correct?
Right.
So if something is spent that's gonna take our budget out of, balance, it has to come before this board for a budget amendment.
Right. Generally, what we do now, anything that's new, we right now practices we bring it to the board for approval, for a budget amendment or through a motion to allow the city manager to enter agreement.
So our money, we're protecting the money. It's not that somebody could sign a
Right. No.
$20,000 contract.
No illegal activities going on. This is just to kind of get our policies more detailed and get all parties have a good understanding of what's required going forward.
Commissioner Moss?
Thank you, sir. I'll start with Commissioner Way. I'm going to support your idea about a continued conversation on this. I definitely think that's a good idea. However, there's always a however in there. I am not supportive of what I am hearing from my colleagues, because I think we are on the verge of going down a slippery slope, as I mentioned earlier, about the micromanaging piece, and that is what concerns me. For me, trust is a big issue. It absolutely is. I will not apologize or back off of that one bit, because I do trust our people in doing what is best for the city. They've given me no reason to question that. At such time that happens, then I'll question it. But today, that is not the issue. I think, for me at least, I think our focus is misguided. I think we should be focused on making sure, and we talked about other communities, getting in trouble. I live with an auditor. I know what that looks like. I have to present 2 IDs to get a check in my house. So when we have talked about that at home, it is because of a lack of internal controls. And there is nothing in our audits that have led me to believe that we have, you can heavy sigh all you want, there's nothing that lets me believe that we have a lack of internal controls. Do we want to tighten up the language? Absolutely. Thank you.
Any more discussion?
I guess this is something I gotta agree with Commissioner Moss. When nothing was broke, I didn't see any reason to fix it. So, we've talked about this around a while, and have something that ain't broke, so maybe we should just leave it the way it is.
That's what I said 10 minutes ago. Ain't broke, don't fix it.
All right. We don't go nowhere. Budget amendment number 3.
Okay, so as every year, this amendment is typically it's the first amendment, but of course we have some items in the last meeting that required a budget amendment for approval for some current projects that are taking place. But this amendment is to roll over year-end purchase orders at the end of FY '26. So all of those open POs that were necessary, that are open items that were carried over into the new year, are appropriated in this budget amendment. In the general fund, we're appropriating $15,826 for those open purchase orders that are varied between those multiple departments. Stormwater appropriating $79,829 of fund balance, and power bill funding $154,363 of fund balance. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Commissioner Kaczynski?
Travel and training. Did I go over my travel and training? Sounds like there's an $1,100 set.
No, that is PD for a conference that
Okay.
that was open in the previous budget. Conference.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Lee? All right, Lee, we gotta take a quick bowel break. We're gonna take a 3-minute little break, y'all, and come back.
Okay.
All right?
I was totally lost.
I didn't know what the hell we were talking about.
No, me either. I thought we were talking about changing something. I don't know where. So you made it clear in the end, anyway.
Yeah, right.
All I say is you're just smart. Yeah. Sorry, Lee, how you go, brother? Thank you for allowing me to. Hey, Mr. John. Good evening. What you call tired to the bone? What tired to the bone? You guys again, come on back. Nice to see you. I absolutely will.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Take care.
John, good night for yourself. I'm back here. It wouldn't be any fun if we bathed ourselves all the time. Especially at our age. figure it's all the time, what the hell did they do? If I can.
And he wanted us to buy it for $1 million. We just went, did on the bottom.
And that was my sister just.
Close. It's getting critical, by the way.
You know,
that's what I was
start to drink and it was making me.
I'll never have to use the bathroom until I start doing this. Oh, well, that's true. That is true. That water starts.
Waiting on it. Waiting on it. We're waiting on it.
This one is not open. No, when she opens it, when she opens the gate, man, I started drinking. I'm on that medicine to take you go. Oh, man.
Oh my God, we're down to not have one of those.
Sure, man. Which one are you? Yeah. No, see, that was my problem. That procedure they do, I'm not quite back to being able to bark off the tree, but I'm close. I'm close. My dad, we used to have from like different styles. He came out, he was like, "There's nothing wrong with your prostate." All is that one? Yeah, sorry. All right. Oh, Lord.
Call this meeting back to order. Lee. Financial update for the month ending June 2026. Oh, you do need a motion for that budget. That budget amendment 3.
I make a motion to approve budget amendment number 3.
Second.
All right, it's been a motion to approve budget amendment number 3 and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Then we can go with financial update.
Yeah, so this is the last financial update for fiscal year 26. Two things to note, property taxes and the general fund revenues. As of June 30th, we were 99% collected of property taxes, but that did not include June's collections. So with June collections, we exceeded estimated property taxes for FY26. Of course, sales and use tax, as of June 30th, there was still missing 2 months because we received 2 months behind, so 87%, but we're still on pace to collect all of sales and use tax. Total general fund revenues, with the exception of fund balance, we are 57% collected. General fund expenditures, 95% expense. One thing here I do want to point out, at June 30th, we still receive invoices for the prior year that we, in this past month, that we backed to, as a prior year payable back to the previous fiscal year. One thing that I want to note that will come up probably in the audit, Public Works, when Steve Edwards left, when employees leave, we pay them off for their vacation leave, and his balance was a pretty hefty amount. So that was an unexpected expense that took that budget over the estimated amount that I didn't capture in the last budget amendment that we did for the fiscal year. not a lot, so it wouldn't be, depending on the auditors there too. In my opinion, it shouldn't be material, meaning it's excessive. But I just do want to point that out, to give you all a heads up if it do come up, that expense was something that was major at the end of the fiscal year that wasn't able to be captured in a budget amendment because it happened after the last meeting of June. Of stormwater fund revenues, 135% collected. Stormwater fund expenditures, 86% expense. Power bill fund revenue, we exceeded the estimated amount due to the two allocations plus the interest earned on those funds, 100% collected there. And power bill fund expenditures, 93% expensed. But of course, that encumbrance amount that you see there actually rolled over into this current fiscal year. That was a budget amendment that was just approved. So, any questions? And the FY26 I we just want to keep you all updated. It has started, it is underway. I have been in contact with others, started submitting necessary documents. So that process is underway, and we'll give you updates throughout the year. But just to let you know that the deadline was extended, as you all remember, was extended to December now. So don't expect to see your audit presentation until the end of this year, in December sometime, or the beginning of January. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And this is the last format you will see in this format. There will be a new format going forward that kind of would detail some more items that you all will find beneficial. So be on the lookout for that next financial summary.
Will we have a training class?
You have a training class? I'm going to try to not make it as complicated. It should be kind of straightforward, and you should be able to read. I want to make it easy for you all to read as well.
Thank you.
All right, have any questions for Lee? All right, thank you, Lee. All right, 2027 fireworks event, Commissioner Kozinski.
So, I was gonna bring this up for discussion at some point. I had spoken to the city manager about it several months ago, but I wanted to talk to fellow board members and get everyone's opinion on, we have done the fireworks event for 9 years and done it very well. And I have had a mayor come to me, we know that we are sharing the Martin Luther King breakfast with our other municipalities. And on that note, what I wanted to find out is anybody interested in possibly having the mayor or the city managers get together and find out if another municipality wants to take over the fireworks event and give Angie a rest after 9 years. And I just wanted to find out if anybody was interested in it and possibly let another municipality take it over for a couple of years, share it, rotate it around, or whatever.
You know, for me, I could talk to Mayor Nurse over in Oxford, and I mean, the Gap is probably an amazing place. I went to a thing out in, I think it was Franklin County, where it was kind of like a Gap situation where people brought their blankets and they shot lawn chairs, and you just laid back on your back and they shot them over your head, kind of like not off the not off the side up there at Lake Holt, which is amazing. But I mean, kind of like right under the ball field, you just lay your mats out there and it's like fireworks going off over top of your head. So I mean, I would be more than willing to talk to Mayor Nurse or Commissioner Velez or Commissioner Brooks and see if they. And what she doesn't want, does she want to do it in Butler? I mean, does she still want to have it?
No, I haven't talked to anybody else about this,
Okay.
just the city manager, and I wanted to talk to the board first and find out if anybody wanted to offer it up to the other people that are in it with us and
Yeah.
see if they would like to take it over for a year and see if they, everybody wants to have a share. And if not, and if we don't want to do that, I would absolutely like to ask that we do an RFP this year for the fireworks provider because we've used the same one for 9 years and the price has gone up substantially. And in an effort to cut costs, maybe we should check to see if there's a way for us to save a little money if we continue to do it, by putting an RFP out there for another fireworks company.
City Manager?
I have identified in the last couple of months of the last fiscal year, 12 other fireworks vendors that we're prepared to reach out to do an RFP or RFP to find out how many others might be interested and how much money we might be able to save. Of course, this year was a big year being the 250, so everybody was in line and everybody was having to pay whatever those increases were. But I'll be glad to ask Butner if they'd be interested in taking over what we've been doing or, anything. What is it? I mean, selling into the county, and you've got a list in your budget there, in your book, showing what this year's expenditures were. And the only thing we have not received yet is the county's contribution of $2,500. And I let Drew and, the system manager know that if we did not receive that the increase, that would be a split increase that they would receive, Butner would receive. It would be passed along to them. Instead of that $2,500, we would pay an additional $1,250 and Butner would pay an additional $1,250 to make up the difference. But I don't have any reason to believe that they won't go ahead and come through with this, but they're just doing their due diligence. And they wanted to talk to, Board of Education about it or Board of Elections about it, or they're doing some investigatory work. So I'll just leave it at that for right now. But, if you have any questions about this year's, we have not invoiced Butner, of course, until we know what the county's going to do. And Jordan McMillan is well aware of that. We talked just this week.
All right, any more discussion? Commissioner Gleason?
Maybe Commissioner Moss would, maybe not. Oh, no. Was there anybody that ran his fireworks before us, or did it start with us? And
That is a great question, Ed. This is a great question.
my question
is
just is,
9 years old.
Angie's, like you said, Angie's done it for 10 years.
Yeah. And the MOU is 9 years old that we have with Butner.
And it's an extremely complicated issue. I'm sure the chief would like to see it go to somebody else, but, I don't know that somebody's gonna jump up and say aye.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know either. I just, asked.
I guess we could ask, and see.
But Chief, you and I have talked about this way before the 4th of July, that I'm concerned about the location and the fact that it's pretty much one way in and one way out. And that if there was an incident, it would be difficult to get everybody out. And I don't know if if any of these other municipalities might have a better site.
So that I don't know. We, as the law enforcement personnel, that we are assigned certain areas with Butner being the lead because it is in Butner. So the last couple of years, Butner's been in charge of traffic. The sheriff's office handled mostly security and stuff inside. And CPD, we usually have the handicap section down by the restaurant. And we provide the security and all that down there. So as far as our part goes, I mean, it's seamless. There's no issues whatsoever with any of that. So I want to speak to the other part. From our standpoint, there's no issues in traffic. The first year I was there, it took a long time to get people out because it is going in and out. But I can tell you that Butner has done an amazing job the last 2 years in getting people out there.
And I really can't think of a place that you could have that many cars, that many people. Because I mentioned the Gap, but the Gap doesn't have that parking. It's not a lot of parking. The BAP, not a lot of parking. That field allows 300 cars to get over there.
I will say again too, and I just spoke to law enforcement, but the fire department, they play a huge role in helping park cars and all that stuff. So I think you can tell that it's been going on for a while because it's gotten better. Every aspect has gotten better year after year. I think he's doing a good job in doing that.
Well, you think maybe we could talk to Angie and see if we could have somebody shadow her this year? And maybe take over, yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's see. All right.
Just a suggestion, that's all it was.
All right. All right. City manager report.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, before the FY '26 closeout, asbestos testing on the 413 Watson Street property was conducted to determine what expenses would be needed going into 2027. Of the 27 materials samples tested, only 2 came back positive. That was asbestos fiber in the backing of the 3rd layer of bathroom floor, and the mastic used to put it down, and the mud, actually the sheetrock mud used to seal the cracks and screws during installation. With the FY '27 budget reductions, all funding requests to improve that property were placed on hold until FY '28. In order to have the budget numbers for the next FY, I have asked for proposals. I've got 3 or 4 so far, but there's nothing going to be done. I just wanted you to know that we did the testing, and the reason I wanted to do that was, had we not had any positive results, we could have moved forward with fire department demo, public works hauling off the debris, and clearing the lot. So I thought it was important to find that out. That wouldn't have slowed us down or stopped us at all, but knowing we've got some asbestos, and there's some discussion now about whether the fire department can remove part of the asbestos. The asbestos can be removed from the flooring, but you can actually burn the house in place without going in it with the other material in there, and not have to take all of the sheetrock off the walls. You can't go in and just take the mud out. All of the sheetrock inside would have to come out. So I'm starting to get some numbers in. They're not too bad, but still, we don't have funding this year. And if we see we're in this year, the later we do, we'll come back and let y'all know and ask you to approve of asbestos removal so we move ahead with that. But right now, there's nothing going on. We're still patiently waiting to receive updates from the Partridge grant that was submitted by Chastity for the children's playground. We're expecting August, I think she said. We're also waiting for an update from the Duke Energy Foundation on a grant submitted by the chief for another tabletop exercise. And this time, I'd like to do an ice and snow event like we've had in the past, where we're more apt to have that than we are a tornado or hurricanes. Not to say we haven't had them in the past, but that's the one that hits us sometime every so many years. 85 gets shut down. I mean, things that just happen that could impact us and our residents. Utility costs continue. Following the January installation of the solar panels of the roof on the City Hall roof, in May of '26, reflected a 37 reduction from May of '25. In June of '26, reflected a 36% savings over June of '25. The total savings in the first 6 months of 2026 are $4,343, or 61% over the actual 2025 utility costs. So we've just gotten in July's. This is not in your sheet right now because it just came in and I changed it. July 2026 reflected a 39% savings over July of '25, for now an annual savings for 7 months of $5,013. To date, July reflects the most cost savings in 1 month, totaling $432, less than the July of '25 bill. So this is well worthwhile. It is really turning around, and it seems like the hotter it gets, the more payback we're getting. But we're going to continue to track this, and hopefully it won't take long to pay for the solar panels and get those done. One other thing I hadn't had in a month or two was the VC3 executive summary for month ending. Since we've moved our server to a data center in Georgia, we only had 14 work orders opened and 14 closed, and of course that place is 24/7. They never go down. They got folks there working 24 hours a day. They can move us. They can throw us to another data center if something happened. They've got generation, so it's a good fit for us. But subject to your questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Commissioner Moss?
Yes, sir. I just had 2 quick questions for Mike, if I could. At our last meeting, I tried to get this up for discussion, but I couldn't. Regarding our mailings, we've just had the water quality survey mailing, and we just had the most recent Creedmoor connector mailing. I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this. I am still concerned about our mailing list. I feel like we're keying off of the wrong data, maybe a parcel number versus a mailing address. And this is what, you're gonna talk, go ahead.
I was gonna wait for you to finish. No.
No. I was just gonna say, I brought my evidence.
Right,
So
I understand.
these are all mine.
Right, I understand.
They are, two of these are to parcels with a house with someone living in it. The others are to vacant lots.
Okay.
And it just feels like we could see some cost savings in paper, envelopes, printing, postage. That's just how it feels to me.
So the water quality surveys went out based on a listing we received from the tax office.
And again, same story.
And if you own 5 parcels, you will get 5 letters or surveys or, I'm not sure about that one.
This is
not sure
the
about
cities.
that.
Yeah, this is the cities.
So what list, if I can ask Barbara, what list do you use?
The same one that you all use.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why the duplication.
And I guess my point is, and more actually, especially with the water survey, I think it skews our data in terms of surveys that we got back. Because again, the survey went to, at least in my case, to parcels that don't have a house on it. And so we calculated our results based on how many surveys went out, what we got back. So what went out was way higher based on, it should have been at least 3 less just from my properties.
You have 3 pieces of property with no house on it.
That is correct.
When we asked the tax office, it was just property with houses, and it was 1,881 mailed out to house from the tax office.
That is not.
That was a mailing list came from.
That is not what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just providing feedback.
Thank you.
Something to think about for the future.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I had a second question. No, I think that was it, Mike. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I think that was it. Thank you.
Supervisor report?
The only thing I have now, been to the assistant vice chair, excuse me. I don't have a executive director's report because of illness, God did not provide one to us.
We got an executive director's report. Why did you not get it?
I did not get it.
Well, when I get home, I'll forward it back to you. The executive director has been out on vacation 1 week, and now he's on his 2nd week of being sick since he got back from his vacation. Our last CWASA meeting was a lot of financial paperwork, cleaning up from last year, going over some expenses. It really was a short meeting, and because our STEM representative wasn't there, we couldn't bring up all the issues we needed to because STEM didn't have a representative. That's it.
Commissioner's report? Commissioner Gleason?
I have no report other than to, again, thank our staff for the presentation on the data centers. And from what I heard, what we got from our people that were attending the meeting was a lot different than what they got last night.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moss?
Thank you, sir. Y'all are gonna not be happy with me. I've got a few things here this evening. I'm gonna begin with probably the most exciting news in our community in a while. Molly the dog was found. So
great news.
So that was a lot of fun. And if you don't know, the accident was up near the 15 near the Wood Products place, and she was found on Wilsuit Road, which is almost near 85, somewhere down that way. So she traveled quite a distance. The second thing I wanted to mention, I had mentioned several months ago actually that the county, Creedmoor, and NCDOT and Campo were trying to schedule a meeting to talk about our specific needs. That meeting still has not been scheduled due to conflicts in everybody's calendar. So I heard on Monday that they are working on it, so hopefully that'll be coming soon. Something else that we've been keeping our eye on, as we all probably know, the North Carolina State Board of Elections will meet on August 20th. at 1 p.m. to review Granville County's voter plans. I'm hopeful that that is something that this board is interested in terms of the administration of our upcoming municipal elections. And one plan that I know that will be presented preserves our current early vote sites at the South Branch Library, Tar River, Oxford Public Works, and actually with the county's help funds that additional early vote site up in the Stovall area. The other thing I just wanted to mention, I had the pleasure of attending for a few minutes yesterday the convocation for Granville County Public Schools. Today I attended a great event that was sponsored by Parks and Rec and the Creedmoor Police Department, the backpack giveaway with school supplies. Tremendous turnout. It was a lot of fun. Did you make it by there? It was, I don't know how many people were there when you were there, but it was a lot of folks there when I was there.
18 kids there.
Yeah, so a lot of fun, and I think they had about 235 bags to give away, so they were very successful in their donations and recruitments. On Sunday, I had the opportunity to visit with the Artistry Collective. They were giving out free haircuts and back-to-school supplies. I was told they had over 55 kids that they gave free haircuts to, so that was quite impressive. And just kind of coming up, I'm looking forward to Mayor Pro Tem's Law Enforcement Day at Mount Vernon. I forget the date of it.
I'll send out the invitations this week.
Okay, yeah, but that's coming up in September, so I look forward to being there for that. I would also, and I'm not sure to what extent, I just kind of made the phone call to staff, to Mike Turner. Actually, I got in trouble saying Mike. I got to go either Mike T or Mike F. Plus I never go Mike F. I go directly to Mike. Okay. But at any rate, I'd like to thank the staff. There you go. For their help in getting Stroud Funeral Home their building permit. I understand that they are moving forward with whatever it is they need to do to get their business up and running. And Mr. City Manager, I'm directing this directly to you right at this particular moment. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around, because I am failing miserably. Get my head wrapped around our agenda process and how I, as a commissioner, am supposed to engage with staff. And I say that with all sincerity. We see some agenda items that are put on the agenda but are pulled off, which I personally don't think it's fair.
Not by us.
I know by the board, I get it.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to understand,
Right.
I'm just trying to understand how we address that issue. Maybe that's a discussion amongst us. If that's okay, I'm good with that too. Yes, sir.
If you've had a chance to look at section 5 in here, it speaks to agenda and how items can go on and how they're taken off.
Yeah.
That may help a little bit if you hadn't had a chance to glance.
I will review that. And I'll be very specific. Commissioner Wilkins' item that was on at the last meeting, based on my reading of that, that was not the case.
Yeah. We put anything on that's asked to be put on.
That's right.
Staff puts anything
That's
on
right.
the commissioners want on.
That is
It's up
correct.
to you guys to decide whether, if you three of y'all want to pull it off, you can do that.
Yeah.
If you want to put one on, put an item on later after the agenda goes out, you can do that.
Well, I'm gonna hold that one open for now, because that is very distressing to see that happen. I would just put it I'll leave it at that for now. And on the staff engagement process, that one is equally concerning for me, because I am doing everything I think I'm supposed to be doing. Whenever it is I have a request for information, I send it to you.
That's correct.
And my frustration is, sir, that is not happening across the board. And we hear it continually.
Typically, I ask that you commissioners make the request to me, and I will either respond to that or I direct staff to do that and respond back.
But I continue to hear that I have called staff, I have called Kevin, and I don't do that. And I don't know, it is just, this is a process that you ask us to follow. Some of us are doing it, others of us aren't. And again, I am more than willing to have that discussion. I'm just asking you, if that's your process, if that's what you've requested. We had this discussion publicly and privately back in December when I came on. And we talked about it, I believe, out here at some point. But from my perspective, this is how we all should be conducting ourselves. We should not, as a commissioner, you asked me not to engage with staff directly unless you instruct me to do that. And we've done that. On the data center discussion is a perfect example. I sent you my concerns about that. You said, talk to Mike Frangos. Mike Frangos connected me to Dallas, and life was good. We went on. But I'm just trying to figure out if I'm doing something wrong. Tell me.
Okay. I mean, that's exactly the way it's supposed to be done. We talk to you, you talk to us. We don't talk to the chief, we don't talk to Mike, we don't talk to anybody without asking you to do it first.
Because I will either get that information or ask staff to respond to you and copy the group so everybody knows.
And it never fails.
That way I'm not out of the loop and I know I'm involved in what's going on.
I completely get it.
Yeah.
It is just frustrating for me to be following your process and then to at the same time know that we have another that does not. And I'm trying to, I'm struggling. I'm trying to be respectful. I am. But, I don't know if it's a slip, but we hear it constantly. I have called somebody, and I've heard it tonight. Call Kevin. And it is frustrating. So if you would like to have a one-on-one conversation, I would appreciate it. But, if we would like to have a public conversation about it, I am completely okay with that too.
To me, legal is a kind of a different, because he works to support this board.
No, Mike, it is not.
No,
it is not. No, that is not a delineator. That's not the right word I was trying to use.
I know 100% I can't answer those legal questions. That's why I have to go to Kevin.
What I'm saying is, I have a request for information, legal question. Every time, just about, every time I send it to you, you send it to Kevin, Kevin responds. That is the flow of information as I understand it to be. But there seems to be a double standard. Maybe that's what I should say. There's a double standard that concerns me. I am going to let it go for tonight so we can get out of here. It's almost 9 o'clock. But I'm just letting all of my colleagues know.
I don't know Kevin's number, so
I get it off the email. But I'm just saying, if this is the way it's going to continue, I am going to request another conversation about it. And I will be willing to, because I keep great notes. That's my thing.
Kevin and his staff do a great job. When someone calls, he flips the egg timer.
No,
I know he does it. I hear when he sits down on this.
What I am referring to, Mike, is I keep great notes of when references are made to, I called so-and-so. I keep great notes. And I am prepared to start calling those things out. I'm trying not to do it right at this moment. But I am prepared to, because I don't think it's fair to the other 4 board members to be in that spot. I don't.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Moss. Commissioner Way? Commissioner Kaczynski?
So, I attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting in Oxford, and also with the Chamber of Commerce, went to Rogers Management's 1-year anniversary and thanked her for her years on the planning board and the fact that they stayed in Creedmoor and they're helping with our economic development and helping to make Creedmoor look pretty. I was honored to attend the ribbon cutting of the new agricultural warehouse in Butner and spending time with Commissioner Troxler After the ribbon was cut, the technology of this building was further explained to us on a tour of the facility. And the tour guide we had was extremely knowledgeable and thorough with explaining the number of people that are fed through so many food programs, including the 33,000 meals that were distributed to school children during the summer. The sub-zero freezers will keep so much food for so many longer. However, when I came out of that room, I think my pants were still cold for about 20 minutes after I got out of there. It didn't take a while. But it was a room that was extremely cold, and it's gigantic. It was a pleasure to see representatives from Tom Tillis's office, Brad Knott's office, Ted Budd's office there, and Commissioner Troxler told some great stories and thanked so many people. Then the Granville County Convocation, which was an amazing event, learning about the progress made with test scores across the board in every grade, in every school over the past 3 years, the upswing in attendance, and the new policies that will be in place beginning this year. I was so lucky to meet the principal of the year from Cradle, Dr. Glenda Williamson, made such a moving and beautiful speech, she got a standing ovation. The love showed to her from her staff and colleagues was heartwarming. I certainly feel that this school year will be another positive one. And I was lucky enough to get a tour of South Granville High School afterwards and see all the upgrades and the progress being made to help all students. And I understand that more will be coming. I wish all the students and their families a great year and much learning. And I was hoping that our flock camera person would stay here to advise him that the flock cameras were approved by the legislature on state roads, and that was in the budget bill. Thank you, Kevin, for providing that to us in an email.
Thank you, Ms. Kaczynski. Mayor Pro Tem?
No report today.
All right. Mayor's report. I don't think I have too much to report. I did go down to Studio 417. I'm glad you went to the artistry collection too, because I went down to Studio 417. That's the old Sid's grocery store. For those of y'all that are from Creedmoor, the old Sid's grocery store. But they were having a $40 tattoo event where they had a food truck out there, and the artists were offering $40 tattoos. Me and the wife didn't get one that day because it was a line. I mean, they had about 5 sheets full. I mean, it was packed with people getting $40 tattoos. So I went back, Tuesday, and got my tattoos on the back of my calves of all my kids' footprints. So, great people there. Jeff, he's never been anything but good to me. Daniel, tattoo artist, did my tattoo. So if you get a chance, go by there and say hey. So, I mean, really good people. That concludes my report.
Alice, I have a question for you. Do we have any news on the zinc house?
We know that they got their building permit, from Granville. So, they have, started doing fits on the inside. They haven't done anything on the outside yet, but they are working on the inside already.
We have a motion to adjourn. Bring me to a second.
Motion to adjourn is seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Let's go. Let's go. I gotta get up early too.
I did on the sidewalk. I forgot to mention it. We broke ground on the sidewalk.
Man, my butt. So we down in that seat.